let's try to think spring as we head into this compilation video. I dug deep. Some of these are from a few years back, some are maybe from last year, but this compilation video is filled with budget-friendly, lots of Dollar Tree and Hobby Lobby clearance type of DIYs. I hope that you enjoy it. Let's get started and let's try to think about spring at least just a little bit. So I've been trying to really work through my stash, and that includes paints. I've got so many paints, and I know that you can mix colors, but recently a friend mentioned to me, she's like, why don't you just like mix them and maybe you'll be able to find more uses for them because I have so many colors. And I was like, that's a really good idea. So I'm mixing together, just playing, scientist here. Is that science? I guess that's not really science. I don't know. But I'm mixing together a few shades of green along with some beige and coming up with a really pretty green color that I'm going to use on a lot of my DIYs. So I have this sign. I don't remember where it's from, but it's probably from Hobby Lobby is my guess, that I previously DIY'd. You can see, but I've sanded it down. But just grab a sign, any sign from the Dollar Tree, thrift store. If you have old home decor in your home that you're no longer loving as much, instead of donating it, you can give it a makeover. It's a really great way to repurpose things and helps you get some new, fresh decor on a budget without having to spend sometimes any money, depending on what you already might have on hand. So I'm going to give that a couple of good coats, and then I'm going to seal my project with some DIY clear wax. You could also seal it with Mod Podge or not seal it at all. I don't know, some projects require it more than others, but just to be on the safe side, I did go ahead and do that. And I'm just applying it with an old t-shirt, a scrap from a t-shirt. So just something that doesn't have lint on it. And we're just going to wipe that on, and then you can just kind of buff it in, is how I do it. I think I do it right. Anyways, so once that is done, I'm cutting down a popsicle stick, and I'm going to hot glue a couple of these together. I was looking for something to just give a little bit of depth for the piece that we're going to attach on. I didn't want it to be flat. This is a pretty piece from Hobby Lobby. They've got lots of animals in different shapes and had a few with some scriptures on them. And I thought this was really pretty for spring. And I just didn't want it flat on the box or on the sign, but I didn't want it super, super elevated. So I just went through my stash and decided on a couple of, pieces of popsicle sticks. And then I just glued that on there. And that was all for this one, but I thought it came out really pretty. Let me know what you think. All right, up next I have this metal bucket. Dollar Tree has these, Walmart has these. I picked mine up from the Dollar General, and I probably paid less than $1 for it. I'm assuming I get a lot of my stuff from Dollar General when it's marked down on clearance. All of the time, do not snooze on your Dollar Generals if you have them near you. But I'm just using my heat gun to take off the sticker, kind of soften up the adhesive, and then I'm just using some orange essential oil to get the sticky off. And then I did clean it with a baby wipe so that there wasn't any residue left behind from the oil. And then we're going to go in and give this a couple coats of the color green. I'm going to do the whole thing inside, bottom. The inside I didn't do as good of coverage, but sometimes I don't know exactly what I'm going to end up putting in it, and I don't want you to be able to see the different color. Although it's not really like it's a bad color if the inside, I suppose, was this cream color. But I also did paint off the black rim, so some green did get down inside. Anyways, give that a couple coats. And then I have this gold butterfly sticker. This is from the wall decor, like wall stickers from the Dollar Tree. And because my piece here has like ridges in it, I wanted to just kind of start from the center and work the way out to make sure that I was able to press the sticker into the ridges. I was afraid that if I had to pull it up and reposition it with the paint being on like tin, that I would probably pull up the paint. So I wanted to get it right the first time. And then I'm going in with a chippy brush and some paint, just very little on my brush. And I kind of went heavier around the top rim, but didn't paint it a solid white. And then went across the whole thing. This kind of blends the sticker in a little bit. It also just gave a look that I like. It's a little less crisp, but I felt like the edges of the sticker got blended in a little bit more. And then I'm sealing this once again with a DIY clear wax. You can see the bottom of the tin there is not as well painted. I did seal that though because I didn't want any floral stems that I might put in there to chip away at the paint. But just to give that a coat of whatever you want to seal it, and then I put in just another potted plant that I had. But I love how this one came out, really simple and an easy makeover. This DIY, we're starting with a little pedestal. This was from Hobby Lobby from 4th of July, maybe a couple years ago. I picked up a couple of them. You can see it has a little chip on it, and it was after season, so they were 90% off. I think I paid like 20 cents for this and several others that I got. So I did put a coat of Mod Podge underneath just to help. I don't know, I feel like some surfaces it helps paint adhere to it better. And then I gave this a couple coats of this pretty green color. Obviously, you do yours in any colors that you want. But I just gave that, I think it only took two coats. And then we're going to seal this in once again with that DIY clear wax. Definitely seal it. If you're painting it on metal or like ceramics, seal it up with something. If you don't want to just use Mod Podge, that's fine. And then this is just a file holder that I have in my craft stash because actually the other side is pretty pretty. It's a little greenery pattern. But anyways, I just cut out a piece of that to fit on top of the pedestal, and we're going to make a little scene, and we're going to add a cloche. So I'm just hot gluing one of these moss bunnies from the Dollar Tree, and then I'm adding in some hot glue and some floral moss from, I don't know if it's called floral moss, I think it is, from the Dollar Tree. And you don't really need a lot of this because I didn't need it to be like high up and bulky, but I just wanted to cover that cardboard. So I did go to all of the edges. You could also probably just do this with like Mod Podge or Elmer's glue instead of hot glue, but hot glue gun was out. And I could even just really cover the edges almost with the dust of this moss. I just didn't need a lot of it. I just cut this down to fit on top of that pedestal so that it would be, you know, not hanging over the edges at all. And then we're going to place that on top. And then I have this cloche. This is just the top of the cloche. So I'm going to glue that down. You can see. This is the top of a cloche from the Dollar Tree. It comes with a base that I used at some point for something. So I just have the top of it and it fit well on top here. And then I wanted something for on top of the cloche. So I took a bead I had. I did fill in with hot glue. That doesn't work as good as filler, like a spackling, but it worked good enough. Painted it. And then hot glue that on top. I did not secure this to the pedestal. You could certainly do that with some glue, but I just set it on top, and I thought this was super cute for spring. We've got some more Dollar General items here. This was something I picked up for only 10 cents after Valentine's Day, and I was like, this is a great base for a little sign, so we're just going to take off our sticker. And then I'm also removing some hot glue here to pull this embellishment off. And one thing that's great, but I have to keep in mind with Dollar General items, is they tend to be put on better than the Dollar Tree. So here I realized that there was actually nails holding that heart in. And so I used some pliers to try to pull them out. I ended up actually hammering them down in because I just could not get them to be pulled out. And I sanded it down just to give it a little bit easier to cover all of that writing, and gave it a couple coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color white. And then I'm dry brushing with that green color just to kind of bring all of the DIYs together just a little bit to add a little bit more depth so it wasn't like a flat white. And then I have this pretty little beaded garland from the Dollar Tree. We're going to cut off our little chick here as an embellishment. I'm also going to use the ribbon from the tassel because that goes well. And actually it was one of these white beads that I used on top of the cloche in the last DIY. Also from Dollar Tree, Crafter Square here, I've got these little wood word stickers, and they have stickiness on them so you don't have to glue them. They are fragile. As you can see, I broke that one, but I was able to piece it back together when I put it on, and you can't even tell. So I put on Hello Friends because when I saw this cute little chick, I was like, I don't know. I feel like the chick is just saying hello, friend. I don't know. Maybe that's corny. Whatever. Do what you like with your DIYs, and I'll do what I like with mine. And then I'm just using that ribbon and tying a simple little bow. I'm going to keep it pretty small, but I thought just to tie in a little bit more of that yellow, and obviously it matched well because it came from the same piece. So I'm just trimming down the ends of the bow at an angle, and we're going to hot glue that into the other corner. It is not perfectly centered in it. That's kind of on purpose because the chick is obviously much bigger, but I thought this sign was really cute. It would look great on a tiered tray. For this DIY, I'm going to start with these little chalkboard signs. They are in a clothespin. They come from the Dollar Tree, but I did find one that was already in my stash that I had previously used that I was no longer using, so I'm just going to use that one, and I'm going to paint it white and give that 2 coats. let that dry. These stamps, the ink, this little stamping block, these are all from the Dollar Tree if you can find them. I'm not convinced that the ink pads are awesome. I don't know if I'm just not great at it. I'm still kind of working on my stamping game. But the stamps themselves, I think, work pretty great. And I'm just stamping on the word garden. I like to quickly clean off with a baby wipe or a wet paper towel. Just makes it easier to clean it if you do it immediately. These wood flowers are from the Dollar Tree. And once again, I'm trying filling in the holes with hot glue. I see people do this. I don't like it. I think I'll go back to using like spackling or wood filler, but I don't know. I just don't think it does as good a job. But I've got these flowers and I'm going to paint the back side of them. And I've just painted, kind of what you'd expect. The stems and leaves are in green. And I painted the top in white. And this is when I realized it's kind of hard to see here, but the hole was just not being covered up well. So what I decided to do was go back in with some white paint and mix it in with some baking soda. This paint here is a watered down white paint. If you've been watching my videos, you've seen me use this a lot. I'm trying to work through it, not waste anything. The baking soda gives just a little bit of texture. I've never tried, but I've heard of the product called Salt Wash that is a little bit stiffer and is designed specifically for paint. But the baking soda works good on projects like this. It gives enough texture. I used an old paintbrush because it does kind of mess with your paintbrush a little bit. But it gave me just enough texture. I liked the different textures because I think that adds some depth to your projects, but it also helped cover up that hole on top perfectly. You could not see where the hot glue was. Once that dried, I decided to go in with a pouncer brush and a little bit of yellow and add a little center and kind of make these look like a daisy. For the base of this project, I have this sign from the Dollar Tree, and we're just going to start by adding some details to the handle. So I'm going to use some of those beads from that beaded garland and thread them on. I tried just moistening the twine with like a baby wipe, and that did work, but for this final piece of threading it back through, I had to just put the tape on, use the tape trick to thread that back through and tie another knot. When I cut it earlier, I knew I wasn't going to be losing much of the length, so it worked out fine. And then we're going to attach these to the sign with some hot glue. I accidentally put a little too much in the stem, so it oozed out, and I just used a little tool to kind of scrape that out and got the other one put on. And then we're going to take our little garden sign and put that one at the top. So I thought that looked really cute, got that nice and centered. And I just have this leaning up here, but this is going to be really cute, hung up on a little hook as well. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out so much. For this DIY, I have a sign. Once again, you can see that I've DIY'd with it before. Pretty sure, yeah, this was from the Dollar Tree. And we're going to use more of that. It's just like a stiff cardboard, but it's a file folder. And I'm going to hot glue that down here just to cover that up, give it a nice base. But then we're going to cover it up some more. So I don't know if that was necessary. But I have more moss bunnies from the Dollar Tree. One of those that it looked like I'd already used it before on a previous DIY. I do that a lot because I have lots of DIYs. But we're going to make ourselves a little scene of some bunnies in a carrot patch. This is a little bit more whimsical than I normally go with my projects, but I like to create a variety even if I don't necessarily decorate with everything myself because it's still fun to create and I like to give you guys some ideas. So I'm using hot glue and attaching this floral moss all over. Here I am just kind of scraping off the top layer of it because once again, I did not need this like high and bulky. So I just went around and kind of, evened it out a little bit. And then I have these foam carrots from the Dollar Tree and I just cut them down at different heights and then hot glue them into the moss. So I was trying to make it look like a carrot patch, like these are growing out of the ground and the bunnies are coming along for a snack. I thought this was cute. Like I said, a little more whimsical than I normally do, but I had a lot of fun creating it. And then I'm just trimming off the edges. I probably should have kept a little bit of moss away from the edges because it was a little tight fitting this back in the frame, but it did fit in the frame. I was able to, secure it back on, no problem, but you might want to just keep that in mind. And I just push that in and close down those little tabs again to hold it securely. And I thought this was really cute. I'll probably put this on a tiered tray, but let me know what you think about this one down below. For this DIY, I have a sign that I picked up. I don't even remember where, but I picked up stuff at the thrift store or on clearance after holidays.
and they're easy to make over. So I just sanded that down a little bit, gave it a coat of a Waverly chalk paint in the color white, and then I pulled out some stamps and the stamp block, stamp ink pad, all the things that I picked up from Dollar Tree, and I'm trying to experiment with them. So I'm using the little stamp block to grab these words. It says, "Have a nice day." My Dollar Tree only had a couple different colors of ink pads, so I just grabbed the black and I figured it would be a good place to start. And I'm just going to use a baby wipe to clean up any edges where any ink may have gotten so I didn't accidentally transfer that. We're going to put this in the bottom right corner of our little block sign. And this worked very well. I just was, careful with it and make sure to get a good press down, and I thought it came out nice. So, clean off the stamp, always clean it off right away. And then I have these flower stickers. These were from a journaling type group class thing that I went to, and there was some things left over, and I just had them in my stash. So just peel that off and put that on. That is it. Super simple, nothing complicated here. But I love the colors of these. I thought it was perfect for springtime. I love the violet and the purple and the blues. And anyways, I love how that came out. The next one is another block of wood. I don't know where this came from. I painted it white or whitewashed it white, or maybe it came that color. I honestly don't remember, but it's just a wood block. And then I have these colors from HTV Ront. They're like blues and purples. And this stencil set from Hobby Lobby. Great price on them. You can always get those seasonal ones at least 50% off. And there was 2 full-size stencils, and we're only using part of one of them. So I'm putting a little bit of painter's tape on the edge. I'm going to do the butterfly on this sideways so the edges won't be on all of it. That makes sense. So I'm wanting to make sure I just put a little painter's tape so that no paint kind of got down on the side there. And we're going to stencil this. What I'm doing, I'm trying to do like a fade effect. So I'm trying to do like darker blue and then moving it into purple. It's a very bluish purple. I was trying to kind of coordinate the colors from the first DIY. So that was kind of like the inspiration for the color palette. These paints are acrylic paints from HTV Ront that they sent me, and they are amazingly pigmented, like super pigmented. But with a stencil, I'm just using a stencil brush from the Dollar Tree. And of course, you don't want to have too much paint on your paintbrush so you don't have bleed through. So that's why you see me dabbing it off on a paper towel. And I'm mixing the colors. So I start with like a darker blue, and then I mix it with a little bit of other blue, and then I go to add some more purple, all with the same paintbrush. I didn't change it out in between because I did want that blending. And then I did go in with the little paintbrush and touched up a couple areas and added in a little bit more purple towards the center. Once it's completely dry obviously here, I did sand it down to rough it up. That also faded it just a little bit. That's obviously going to be your, to your taste. But I love how this one came out. I think the colors are really rich and pretty. It's kind of hard to see in this lighting how the center is a little bit more purple, but it is. And I loved how this one came out. Super simple. For this next one, I have this little mini cutting board that I had previously DIY'd, and I kind of just sanded that down to start over. We're going to give this a couple of coats of white Waverly chalk paint here in the center, and I'm just trying to stay off of, just stay on the center part, but we are going to go ahead and dry brush across the whole thing. So I'm going to wipe off any excess paint from my paintbrush, and I am going to do a little bit of a dry brush around the whole thing. I just wanted to lighten it up for this one. I like the color of that wood, but for these DIYs, I didn't want that richer, darker color. So I did dry that with my heat gun, and I did a second coat on the front there just to make sure that I had a really good coverage. And then I'm going to go in with those same paint colors from the last DIY and another stencil from that same stencil set from Hobby Lobby. And I'm kind of just doing the same thing. I'm just doing varying shades, kind of working my way to the inside, blending the colors, and just kind of doing what I feel. I did tape off a good amount of this stencil because one, I didn't want to use all of it, and then the leaves I did want to go in with some green. So I did that and just kind of took my time here because I really had to hold the stencil down. There wasn't really a good way for me to tape it down. And even if I do, I usually try to tape it down in the center or hold it down in the center while I'm doing the stenciling. So now you can see I started peeling off the tape where the leaves were. I'm using a broken paintbrush. When I went to use it, the handle fell off and I was like, well, I'm already in this. I got to hold this, down. So this paintbrush was not super great that I used for the green here, but I wanted a smaller one and my stencil brush was a little too big. So once it was all dry, I went in with a fine tip paintbrush and some white paint and just touched up some of those areas. And then once it was all dry, I did sand it down again like I did the other DIY, just because that's what I like. You do what you like. But we're just going to sand that down and wipe off all of the dust. And here's how this one came out. It looks really cute, just kind of layered in a tiered tray. And I love this color palette for spring. For this DIY, I have this mini picture frame that I picked up at a thrift store. The tag says 49 cents, so I definitely didn't pay more than that, but it might have only been 25 cents. So I wanted to take the insides out, and then I realized this frame, the back is attached. So I couldn't remove it, but I didn't want to get any paint on it. So I just covered the plastic part, or what would in some frames would be glass, but this one was just plastic. I covered that with painter's tape and then just put it back in so that I could paint freely here. And I'm using a stencil brush to get into the grooves, but we're going to do more of that purpley color that I did. And I did a couple of coats of this. The pearly color was pretty, but I wanted to go for something more vibrant. And then I took a small paintbrush and I did the inside and outside of the frame. That did take a couple of coats as well because it wasn't that texture. It took like 3 coats. It was just a little bit more glossy. And then I did use that little paintbrush to get in between all of those little beads as well because I just wanted a really nice, vibrant color. That's just what I was going for. For the inside of the frame, we're going to go back to our stamps using another stamp set from the Dollar Tree. You could also use like a piece of scrapbook paper that had a really pretty image or like a calendar page, something like that. Even something from like a magazine or something. But I picked out this pretty floral piece that I thought, well, it fit well in there as far as the size of the frame, and I just thought it went well with what I was doing. I wasn't sure. I felt like the ink wasn't coming off as good on it this time, so I did a test on a piece of paper, and it worked just fine. It's not incredibly vibrant. I don't know what I should do to the ink pad. I think I'm supposed to store the ink pad upside down, actually. I need to go do that. I think that would help. But once again, I cleaned off the edge and just stamped this. I just used a piece of paper that was inside the frame, but you could, of course, just cut a piece of scrap paper down if you needed to, or computer paper. And we're just going to put that back in the frame. Get that nice and situated, and that is it. These little frames are easy to find at thrift stores, but Dollar Tree has them too. But I love how bright and colorful, and by nature, like it just kind of naturally had different shades in the frame because some of it got a little bit heavier, but I love that look. For this DIY, I've got this little ceramic succulent plant from the Dollar General. They're $1, but I picked a bunch of them up when they were on clearance. I probably paid 10 or 20 cents. So we're going to add a little something to the planter, and I've got these pearly beads, pearly stickers from the Dollar Tree. I have several different sizes and stuff in my stash, and I am really, really trying to work through my stash. I have a lot of little things like this, little embellishment pieces, and yeah, I'm just trying to work through them. So this goes in and out of focus because, as you can see, my glasses keep popping in, and the camera didn't know what to focus on. But I'm cutting it down strips of this, and I have started keeping a little pair of tweezers in my crafting stash, and it came in very handy for these to help hold them in place. And for this particular strip, the way the beads were spaced out, it didn't work for me to just wrap it around the whole thing. So I had to do one strip per side of the planter just because of how they were spaced out and the size of the planter. The size of the sides of the planter. And then I'm just going to do a really good coat with this pretty paint. Once again, I have so many colors of paint, and I don't do a lot of color in my decor, but I think it's fun to incorporate, especially for spring. So I'm trying to use up what I've got. And so I'm just going over this. I did do a couple coats. You can do it. See, I'm doing a nice little coat at the top of the planter. This is just a cement material. It soaks up the paint really well. And but I did do 2 coats and really just covered those beads across the top. And that did not take very long to dry in between, but use it, use your heat gun or a hair dryer if you need to, or just wait. Time also does the trick. And then I have some white paint that I had watered down. I'm just trying to use up some old white paint. So I'm just using a watered down one here. We're going to go across the beads and then dab it with a paper towel just to highlight them a little bit. And then I went around the edges of each corner, I guess. And then I did go around the flat surfaces of all of this as well, just very, very lightly, just to give it a little bit more depth and interest instead of it just being a flat color. And I just kind of went until I liked it. And then I did go in with a coat of Mod Podge on this. I don't know, the material, it may have not been super necessary, but it did probably help keep the paint on the beads at the top. And that was all there is to this one. Just gave the little pot a makeover, but I love this color and I like how this came out. This DIY is using what was a like cream colored ceramic plate on a stand from Dollar Tree, and I had previously painted it and used it in a DIY, so it was originally like a cream colored. But we're just going to give this a couple coats of a Waverly chalk paint in white and let that dry. And then I have these mini foam carrots from the Dollar Tree. Now, the orange it came in was a little too vibrant for me. Now I understand that this more corally color is less realistic, but this is what I went with. So I gave it 3 of those carrots a coat of paint, and we're just going to glue them onto this little ceramic plate just to make a cute spring or Easter little display. These wood bunnies with the little cottontails are also from the Dollar Tree, came in a multi-pack. They had them this year, but I have them left over from last year or maybe the year before. Same thing with the carrots. And Hobby Lobby has similar things too. Probably other craft stores, I just don't get to a lot of the other ones. And so I had previously figured out how these would, be spaced. And so just 3 carrots and 2 bunnies with a little bit of hot glue. And I thought this was just a cute, fun little sign. And I love that it has a little kickstand to it because I don't have to like lean it up against anything. But yeah, that is all for this one. For this next DIY, this is a tag from probably Dollar General. Once again, I'm not sure. I buy a lot of my stuff at Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Hobby Lobby clearance, Dollar General clearance, and thrift stores. Those are my main areas. So I wanted to take this paper off, and so I did wet it down, although that didn't really do much, but I did find like a dry pocket. And once I got my little scraper underneath that, most of that came right off, and then I just continued using a damp paper towel to wet down the rest of it and scraped it and then sanded it to get the remaining off. Did not take much work with the sandpaper. And we're going to go back in again with this pretty coral color. I'm making some DIYs that kind of go together in case you didn't notice my little themes. And doing a smooth coat on the top and then a kind of a light coat on the edges. It's not like fully covered, but I knew I wasn't going to keep the paint fully off the edges, that some was going to drip down, so I figured might as well just go for it. And that did take 2 coats. And then once again from my stash, but these are from the Dollar Tree, these gold butterflies are a rub-on transfer. These are tough. The gold ones at Dollar Tree stink. You can see I already messed up there. The transfer in the beginning when I didn't want it to stuck really, really easily, but then struggled to transfer. And then the transfer sheet itself was not really sticky, so that's why it shifted so easily, so I really had to hold it still. I'm going to make it work. I'm using up the rest of these transfers, but I do not recommend the gold rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree. They're just not their best ones. So I sped this up, but I did also leave a lot of this in here for you to see that it was a struggle. One thing that I try to do is go for a little bit more rustic look, so it doesn't matter that it's not perfect. Now this middle one here, this is not a transfer. This is a sticker, a wall sticker from Dollar Tree. It's kind of in their usually in their frame home decor area. So I did one of those and then two of these awful transfers. But once again, I'm using up what's in my stash. I am determined. And I thought the butterflies, of course, fun for spring. But then this is a little bit more vibrant, plus my transfers struggled a little bit. So I'm going to rough this up with a little bit of sandpaper. I'm also going to sand down the edges. Here is what I'm using a nail file for. But I just sanded across the whole thing to rough it up and make everything, make your accidents look more on purpose. And then I'm going in more with that watered down paint. Doesn't need to be watered down, mine just is. I did a dry brush with that, so I put on my paintbrush and then wiped a lot of that off. And then once that was dry, we're going to seal that in with some Mod Podge, and just to kind of keep those stickers in place. And that'll also tone down the shininess of the gold sticker a little bit as well. And then I'm just going to thread the twine that was already on it back through, just for, I don't know, decor purposes. You could also add on some beads there, or put this on the end of a beaded garland. That would also be really pretty. But I was happy how this one came out in the end. First up, I have this little wood block. I previously DIY'd the other side, so we're going to make it a two-sided sign and paint the other side. And I've just got a paper bowl that once had some water and paint that's dried up, so we're just reusing that. And I'm mixing up some different yellow paints with a little bit of brown paint. I wanted I don't know exactly how to describe the yellow I was going for, but anyways, I'm just trying to use up all the paints that I have. And so I've been having fun trying to mix paints to get different colors and just using up what I have. So once I had the paint color that I liked, we're going to give this a couple of coats of paint, and I'm trying to leave the edges still white just so that it worked good with both sides of the paint. You can actually see there's some little brown streaks in here because I didn't fully mix the paint, and I really liked how that came out. But we're going to give that just a couple coats, and because the sides were painted, I was able to just kind of wipe off the yellow paint that came over the edge with like a baby wipe, I think is what I was using here. And then I wanted to add some detail on the edge, so I tried to go in with my paint markers, and this was just not the right application for it. But once again, I was like, oh, I haven't used my paint markers in a while. Let me see if I can use them. So it wasn't the way to go. So I ended up dry brushing with a stencil brush, some brown paint along the edges. You're going to see this change because when I first started this DIY, I wasn't sure. I knew what I wanted to do for this DIY, but not the others. And I decided I wanted them to all kind of match. So we're going to change that in a second. But the technique or something, or however you want to say that, you can see I was just kind of like feathering it in heavier on the edges, and then it faded it in a little bit. And then I pulled out this stamp set from the Dollar Tree. I do like the stamps. I think the ink pad is not super strong, but I do like how it looked on this piece. It kind of gave a faded look, and I liked it. So I pulled out this pretty sunflower and just stamped that on. I only have one color of ink, so I did the black. You can see there's one spot here where it didn't transfer, so I just added it back on. I like the clear stamps because you can just line it up. And then also in that stamp pack was the word sunflower, and I decided to put that in the bottom right-hand corner of this sign. If you are enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. And then this is when I decided to change the color palette. So I just went in over the brown with some gray paint and just, once again, kind of heavier on the edges and feathered it in a little bit. I just thought it kind of emphasized the edges a little bit and gave a nice little detail. So we're going with gray and yellow for these DIYs. I wasn't planning on necessarily doing more colored spring type stuff, but I love how this came out. And I feel like this color palette is neutral, but with a little bit of color that would be perfect for all summer long. For this DIY, we're just doing a little makeover on this succulent plant. This is from Dollar General. They have them for $1. I think I got them marked down because I bought several of them, and I usually do that when they have stuff marked down. but I thought just painting this cement base would be a really fun way to add a pop of color to a tiered tray. So what I started doing was painting it yellow. I am carefully doing the top edge here. I do use I bumped the camera, but I also use my heat gun to dry it so that I can let the plant down without any paint getting on it. But we're gonna paint that pretty yellow color that I mixed up. And then I am taking some Waverly clear wax. As you can see, I haven't been in there in a while, so I had to mix it up with a toothpick. And we're tinting that with a little bit of brown paint because originally I was going to do some brown on this. So you're gonna see, once again, this DIY is gonna take a couple different turns, but I still wanted to share it with you because the clear wax allowed it to be like very movable and wipeable. And even though I ended up changing the colors after, the wax that was on there, it made it very easy to do. So I'm just brushing it on with my stencil brush and then wiping it off with a paper towel. If you're new to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing. That is a free thing. There's nothing to it. Just hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and that makes sure that YouTube will let you know when I post another video and you're not just relying on them to randomly show you my video. And it helps me out. So when that was all done, I decided, oh no, it was like too yellow or too brown. I wanted to go in with the gray. So I went with some gray paint, and because there was the wax under that, it was still very easy for me to wipe on and wipe off. So that's what I'm doing. And then I decided it was a little too much gray. It looked too much like the original cement. So I'm going back in with some yellow paint, very thick, and then wiping it off. And then I got the look that I wanted. So here is my little message to you when it comes to DIYs. Don't be afraid to do stuff. You can repaint almost anything. So that is what I did. I just kind of kept going until it looked the way that I wanted and it made sense. And I wanted it to look nice with all of my other pieces. Even though it took me a couple of tries, I love how it came out. For this DIY, I have a wood rolling pin. I'm pretty sure I picked this up at Hobby Lobby. They came in like a 3 or 4 pack. They were not very expensive at all. And I'm going in with some gray paint and an angle brush, and we're going to paint everything but the handles. So I'm using a little gray brush, just gonna take my time to do the edges here. Now you can also find mini rolling pins in the Dollar Tree or other places for different holidays, and you can just redo them. But I did happen to have this pack from Hobby Lobby. And then I'm gonna paint, obviously, the main part of it. This piece is a pretty rough wood, and I should have sanded it before I started. I realized as I was painting it. So once the first coat dried, I just gave that a good sanding. It didn't need to be perfect, but I knew I wanted it to be smoother for the next step. So I smoothed it out a little bit and then went ahead and did my second coat of paint. I'm just using an acrylic paint. This is one from HTV Ront, but any paint will do. Like I said, I'm just trying to work through what I've got in my stash. So I have this stencil from Dollar Tree. It was kind of hard. I couldn't really tape it. It wasn't working. I just held it on the best I could, and I'm using some of that yellow paint, trying to not have too much paint on my stencil brush so that it don't have any bleed through. And I just kind of realized I was gonna get my hands messy, and that's okay. And stenciling on the word sweet, I just thought it was gonna be cute for the tiered tray, and it came out pretty good, but I wanted to finish out the stencil, like leaves little gaps in the letters, and I didn't want that font. So I'm just going in with a fine tip paintbrush and carefully just kind of going over the letters again and filling in any of those gaps in the letter. And if you have a small fine tip paintbrush, you can do these things a lot easier. You don't have to be an artist. So I definitely encourage you to get some smaller paintbrushes in your craft supplies because it does make all of the difference in the world. So I'm just going over each of the letters. I'm also making it a little bit of a brighter yellow, and I'm just covering up those gaps. And we're gonna keep this one pretty simple. That is kind of the theme for today's video. I had this yellow and white baker's twine in my stash from the Dollar Tree, and I am just doing 2 pieces of it just to make it a little bit thicker, and I'm tying that around the handle and going to tie on a very simple bow. There's so many different ways that you can embellish this if you want, but I just wanted to keep it kind of clean and simple. The hardest part was tying a tiny bow, but I was able to get it. So, just hang in there. I decided not to paint the handles of the rolling pin, but I love how this came out. I think it is nice and sweet. So let me know what you think down below. For this DIY, I have this wood cutting board that I had previously DIY'd, and I just thought it'd be fun to do it over again. So I'm trying my hand at some power tools. I have this sander that a friend sent to me. Thank you so much. And I finally got brave enough to try it. I'm still getting the hang of it, but you could use a sanding block, but a power sander definitely works better. My husband was filming and coaching me, but I got this thing sanded down. This is going to be so handy when grabbing like Dollar Tree signs that are covered in glitter and all of that. It'll be so much easier. But anyways, we're going to sand this down so we have a fresh start. I didn't go all the way down to the wood the whole way around because I didn't really need it to, but I was proud of myself for trying something new. We're going to give this little cutting board a coat of Silver Lining by Waverly. I have had a lot of these paints for a while and they've gotten really thick. So that is why I'm trying to just work through them before I have to toss them because I don't want to waste anything. But I'm going to give this a couple of coats. I think I did 2 coats in the front and back and just 1 on the side because that just still had that white paint on it. But obviously you're going to paint yours in whatever colors that you like. This is just for ideas and inspirations and you guys know all of that. But we're going to make ourselves a little double-sided cutting board sign for my tiered tray. When I painted the handle, a little bit of paint got down in the hole, so I just took a wooden skewer and cleaned that out. Now for one side, I'm just going to simply take a decal. I honestly didn't realize quite how light this was when I first went to do this because my friend sent me this decal once again. Thanks so much. But I do like how it came out because it almost looks a little bit yellow, so it actually matched really cute and It matched really well, and it was cute. So I did the decal on one side, and then the other, I have this stencil from Hobby Lobby. It's a 2-pack stencil set, $1.99, or of course less. This was a seasonal item. I think I got it when it was 40% off or 50% off. I don't exactly remember. I like the stencils from Hobby Lobby, and I think this butterfly is so pretty. And I did it off to the side a little bit so that it's like purposefully not all on the sign. I knew it wasn't all gonna fit, so I did it this way, and I think it's really cute. So stenciling it, make sure you don't have too much paint so you don't have any bleed through. And that is how this one came out. I really, really love the butterfly side, but I also love the stencil, faith, family, food, perfect for a kitchen. I thought a little book stack would be perfect for the tiered tray. I wanted to show you because I'd previously done these. These are the little mini Bibles at Dollar Tree, like the New Testaments, and I've just wrapped them with white craft paper and taped them, so I did not alter them at all. And so these are the perfect size for a little tiered tray. As you could see, there was orange pumpkins painted on them because I've previously done another book stack with them. So I'm just going to stick that book in the middle and pull out these stamps from the Dollar Tree. Now I only have black ink for my stamps, so I wanted to try it with some paint. And I just try to be really careful to not like push down with this pouncer brush and get like too much paint on it. I really just kind of brush across the top, but I wanted to use more of this yellow paint, and I thought this bird stamp was really cute and good for this, so it worked really good. I just tried really hard to clean them off right away with a baby wipe, and then I did take them to the sink and paint and wash them with soap and water because with the paint, it was just so pigmented. Did not come off as easy as the ink. In that stamp set, it also had the words "Enjoy Life," and I failed to film it, but you can see here that I just took some gray twine and wrapped that around and put a little piece of floral on there. All right, so up next, we've got these mini frames from the Dollar Tree. They come in a 2-pack, and I am going to use 2 in this video. I wasn't sure at first exactly how I was going to do this. I've got these eggs that I picked up from Hobby Lobby on clearance at the end of the season. Love me some seasonal clearance. So I'd seen some different wreath ideas, and I was trying to recreate it. I didn't have anything that I was specifically mimicking, but I was just like, okay, is this going to look good? All right. So once I kind of was like, it will look good, I think I'm going to like this, I just kind of scattered them throughout. Of course, your color palette can be whatever you want it to be, but I love these colors because I use a lot of like that sagey green. I use particularly moss and celery from Waverly in my home decor, so these matched well. And I didn't do a particular pattern. I just wanted to mix it up a little bit. So I was like, okay, if you put the other frame or other wreath over top of it, that's going to close up. I just wanted to make sure that that was going to work okay. And so what I did was put some of this moss. I've been having a hard time finding like the moss stuff. Does anyone know what I mean by moss? There's different kinds of moss, but this is the one I'm using. I'm just going to spread it out. One more that was more beige, I might have liked a little bit better for this particular DIY. So I'm making this not permanent. I'm filling this with the moss and we're going to layer it. Now, it will make a little bit of a mess. My suggestion would be if you wanted to do this, I thought this like totally afterwards, so I wasn't going to redo it, but I would line one of the wreaths with some burlap ribbon, like the inside of it where kind of like, there's a little cubby there. And then I would hot glue the moss to the, do you like that flipping technique? I'd hot glue the moss to the burlap, and that way if the burlap, you wouldn't really see it, and it would be fine if you saw a little bit of it. And then you could even hot glue the eggs on if you wanted, but you wouldn't need to. That would have been a really good idea because it would make it more permanent, but not really because you could just pull the ribbon out if you wanted to redo it. But I did this very quick and so that I could take it apart because I do that a lot with my seasonal decor. I use it for a little bit and then I take it apart. I'm just using some floral wire to attach these together, and then you can put floral wire or a piece of twine or something on the back to use as a hanger, and then I'm just giving it a little bit of a haircut. Again, you could definitely do this in a different way if you wanted to, but the concept of it I thought was really cute. And I'm just taking burlap ribbon to make a very, very simple bow. I just wanted a small bow on the wreath. It's not necessary to even have a bow, but I just folded it over, pinched it, and then I just used some twine. This is actually a few pieces of smaller twine in a scrap bag I had, and so I just tied that down, fluffed it up. We went very, very basic on this. So I wanted to just make sure, okay, is this the right size or placement? I didn't even put tails on this bow. And I just use the twine to tie it on to the wreath, but feel free to use hot glue. Once again, I was just making this something that could easily be taken apart, but I thought this was really cute. It's a mini wreath, so I wouldn't necessarily put it on a front door, but I thought it was super cute. For our next DIY, I had it in my mind that I wanted to make a bird's nest, and I hadn't really thought about how exactly I was going to do that, but then I saw Rebecca Virginia, that's her channel. She recently made one, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try your method. So I'll have her video linked for you if you want to check it out. But she used a brown paper bag as the base. So I cut some of the top off, and then I'm rolling it down, and I'm just kind of shaping it a little bit. This is just going to give us a base to attach our moss to. So I'm using some Mod Podge, whatever one I just had on hand. I used a lot more Mod Podge than you have here. This is messy, okay? This is not a neat project. I'm once again not using my favorite moss, but it's what I could find. Actually, I used two different kinds here. The one I use in the end is the one I really wanted to use, but I did that on the top. And I'm just covering it in Mod Podge. That's right, we're just gonna soak it up. Honestly, because I'm using so much Mod Podge, I wish I had done the homemade version of Mod Podge, which is Elmer's glue, watered down. I don't know if it's a 50-50 ratio, you could look it up, just because I use so much Mod Podge, and that would have been cheaper. But I'm just going to keep doing it and soaking it up with the Mod Podge because you want it to stick, and I'm just shaping a nest. And we're just going to shape it and fluff it, and I use two different types of moss, and we're just going to get it really wet. Now, I let this dry for a while. I let it dry this way, and then I flipped it over and did let the bottom dry as well. And then I just put it on a little candle holder, put a couple eggs in it. I thought this was really cute. I wanted to put this in a lantern, but it didn't fit my mini lantern, so I'll just use it on a shelf. For our first DIY, this item I found at the Dollar General. It was only a quarter. They had all of their Christmas stuff for only 25 cents. After Christmas clearance is excellent at Dollar General. Actually, after season, any holiday season stuff is excellent. So I'm going to do a little DIY with this. I have some faux leather from the Dollar Tree. This is in the color white, as you can see. And I'm pretty sure I saw this idea by Crafts by Caitlin, where she did some rub-on transfers on leather, and I thought that was a great idea. So I'm just tracing out a piece to cover the front. I was going to paint it, but it it's like raised and stuff. The galvanized metal is raised. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to cover it. This was like a perfect solution. And we're going to trim this down to size. I wanted to get it like exact because I didn't want to see any of the metal coming like, you know, coming out on the sides or anything. But we're going to just trim this down. And then I was so excited to find these beautiful rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree. I have not found new ones in a long time. And they only had one pack of these, but I did pick them up. And we're going to use this whole sheet in today's video, but not in this DIY. I ended up getting 3 DIYs out of this sheet. And so I'm just cutting out what I want to put on here. And then I'm going to cut out some of the smaller pieces. You're going to see, we're just going to fill it in. And I could have just done it straight like from the sheet, but I wanted to be able to use the whole thing and use pieces of it on other DIYs. So I didn't want like half of the flowers to be cut off on this piece, if that makes sense. So I'm using a little scraper tool to rub on this. I had a little trouble with it this time, and I don't know if it's because of the tool I used or because it was the faux leather, because they transferred much easier on my other DIYs, but it did all transfer just fine. A popsicle stick actually is what I switched to for the other ones, and it worked better, so that is what I would recommend. But we're just going to do this until we fill it all in. Now, another step that I forgot on this one, which may have been part of my problem in the future, you're going to see, is that when you transfer the rub-on transfers, you're supposed to take the top clear sheet and rub it across the top of the transfer to kind of seal it in. And I did not do that on this first DIY, so make sure you do that. And then I thought it'd be nice to paint the black posts here with a tan color to match. There's a little bit of beige in the rub-on transfer, and I thought it was nicer than the black. The black just felt a little harsh. So I taped off the bottom because I didn't want to get anything on my wood base because I loved that. And I'm just going and painting all of the black. I didn't do the big solid black rectangle there that you see, and I'll show you in the end what I ended up doing. But I made sure to get all of the sides. I wanted to make sure it looked good, you know, from the back as well. And it took a couple coats, but the paint dried really quickly because it was a thin coat and it was on metal, and it just painted really, my goodness, it dried really quickly. So I did a couple coats, and then I have this blessed leather word. I can't remember if this was from Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby. I think it was Hobby Lobby in their fall stuff. I don't feel like blessed is just a fall word. So this tan was a perfect complement because it was similar to the color in the transfers. And I wanted it to just stand out a little bit. So I'm taking just a little bit of brown acrylic paint on a paintbrush, and I'm just kind of outlining it. And it wiped off really easily on the leather if I got it where it didn't need to be, the faux leather, pardon me. But I just used a little damp Q-tip to wipe that off. I could have used anything, but the damp Q-tip was small. So now we're going back here. I was letting the paint dry, so I'm just showing it to you in the order that I did it. And I just thought this was a really, really pretty complement to the flower transfer. And I'm using this glue. It's like a tacky glue, a crafter's glue. The glue is very thick. It always just clogs up the nozzle at the top, so I never use that. I always just apply with a paintbrush, and it's getting low, so I just dipped a popsicle stick in to get some out, and I'm painting it on with a little paintbrush. I wanted to do that as well because then you can spread it out so it doesn't ooze as much out of the sides, if that is making sense. But I did move quickly. I mean, this was sped up, but I moved quickly because I didn't want it to start drying on me. And we're just going to place that down and let that dry. And then I've just put a little bottle underneath that so that this could lay more flat. And I'm taking more of this glue, and I am just going to smear that across this sign. Once again, moving pretty quickly, making sure I get plenty of glue on the edges. And then we're going to go ahead and glue on our leather piece. Now, in this process, I got some glue on my hands. I tried to wipe them off really quick there with a baby wipe, but I think my hands might have been a little bit tacky. And as well, because I did not, like I said, it's called burnishing, I think, when you take the top clear sheet of the rub-on transfers and kind of seal in the transfer. There's a couple pieces of this transfer that kind of came off. You may or may not notice it. Like, you probably wouldn't notice it at first glance, but I think with me rubbing it, anyways, you can see a little bit in that pink flower at the top right. But all in all, I absolutely love how this came out, and I think these colors are really, really pretty for spring. For our next DIY, this little bucket was from the Dollar General. The regular price on it was $1, and I know I paid less than that. I don't remember if it was 50% off or more, but I will always grab those things when I can. So it's kind of cute as is, but I wanted it to go with everything else. I'm kind of making everything kind of go together because I'm going to probably put them in my house in the same spot. So I'm painting it with some Waverly chalk paint in white. I found 2 bottles that were just about empty in my craft stash. And so I put them in another container and watered it down a little bit because it was kind of thick. This is a little too watered down, so it was a little bit messy, but in the end it worked. Just try not to waste any paint, you know? I didn't realize I still had those because I bought a new one, which apparently is what I just keep doing. So I'm using my heat gun to dry it in between coats because I did a couple of coats. I did the top, the bottom, the rim, the inside, everything. And then I'm going to go in, this is the same beige color I used on the first DIY, and I'm going to paint with a small paintbrush the top rim and the bottom rim. I just thought that was a nice complementing color, and once again, kind of coordinates with the others that we're going to be doing. So the key here is to use a small paintbrush. Get yourself a paintbrush set. Dollar Tree has some, but also Walmart or Hobby Lobby. They're not expensive. For a few dollars, you can get a wide range of sizes, and it really makes all the difference in the world. For the top one, I did decide to put some painter's tape down. At the top, I just kind of was eyeballing it because I didn't want to go too far in. Not that it'll really be seen, but I did want it to look nice. And I did have to do a couple of coats of this. But once again, the paint dried really quickly, so it really was not a time-consuming task at all. This was done in really just a few minutes. So I just thought this little rim was a nice touch, a little detail, subtle, and not the typical that I always do with my colors. Having in this beige was really nice. So taking off the tape, and that definitely helped me keep the rest of the vase, bucket clean, whatever. And then I'm using a couple of paint bottles to help me keep this still, and another part of that rub-on transfer. And I wasn't sure because if you can see the texture on this bucket is like ridges, rippled. So I didn't flatten it across the whole thing. I started in the middle and worked my way out, and I held it really firm with my hand. It transferred super easily, which is awesome, but that also means that if you move it, you usually kind of will lose some of the transfer. So I was just very careful, took my time. I can tell well, I don't know if you can tell, it looks like I'm pressing down really hard to hold it in place, and I was, but rubbing it on with the popsicle stick worked great. And then there I am using the top sheet to kind of seal it in. And then we're going to go ahead and Mod Podge this. I'm using a matte finish Mod Podge because that's the finish that I wanted. And I am going to do the inside and outside of this because I wanted to be able to put florals inside and not have the paint scrape out, just so that it wouldn't, look nice longer. And so that's what I decided to do. And that was a good call because paint on metal sometimes scrapes off a little bit easier. So that's why I did that. And I just put some lamb's ear in this, and I thought this was really pretty, and it's going to be a great complement to that first sign that I already showed you. So for this other one, another Christmas clearance from Dollar General. I paid 25 cents for this, but there's lots of round signs at the Dollar Tree as well. I'm using my heat gun to take off this little holly berries because I'm going to put that in my Christmas DIY stash to use in the future. And the heat gun just warms up the glue, and I'm using that as well to get the sticker off the back. We're going to go ahead and just DIY the back of this sign. You could sand down the front if you wanted to, cover it with paper. You could DIY the front of it by painting it, however you want to do it. But I'm just going to use the back, and you can definitely finish off the front by painting it or covering it with some paper. And then I just sanded it a little bit to get the rest of the sticky residue off, and then used my little handy dandy vacuum to vacuum up any dust. And I'm going back in with that white paint. It is a little too watered down. It paints well, but it's a little bit messier. So I had to be careful of paint splatters. But I did a good coat, but as you can see, not a thorough coat because I wanted that chippy look. And these stencils are beautiful. They're from Hobby Lobby. They have really nice stencils. It's a 2-pack for $1.99. And of course, you can get their spring stuff 40% off or 50% off depending on when you go in. And we're just going to tape that down. And then I have these paints from HTV Ront. They sent me these back in December, November, and I just mixed them up to try to match that pink, that beautiful pink color from the rub-on transfers, because I want these to all be able to be displayed together. So I'm just using a stencil brush to apply that. Now with the word stencils, I was kind of holding down some of the stencil because I didn't want it to get picked up while I was stenciling, if that makes sense. But overall, I think their stencils are really nice. And then I'm using a little tiny paintbrush to fill in the gaps on the letters because I usually do that. I like that look better, but that's totally up to you. I missed it on the O. I meant to, well, I filled it in some of them. I meant to leave one of those open, but not both of them that are. But you know what? It's fine. It's totally fine. And we're going to put our little hanger back in. And then we have this burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree. It's this burlap and lace ribbon, really nice. And we're going to make a bow. Because it's only a one-sided ribbon, we're going to just make a loop here using finger protectors because the hot glue will go straight through that burlap ribbon. And then I'm going to cut a separate piece for the tails. And then I think I get a little out of frame here, but I fold them and dovetail the ends. And then I forgot to press record again when I did this part, but I took some jute twine and I tied it over the loop to make the bow portion, and then did another tie to add on the tails. And then I'm just trying to tie this tight here to really cinch it in, and then we'll cut off any excess twine. But this was just a good way to do it for this ribbon. It just didn't think it was going to look good if I tried to fold it or like tie a bow with it. So we're doing that, and then we're going to go ahead and hot glue this onto the top and just fuss with the bow. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just kind of, what do they say, zhuzh it. And yeah, good amount of hot glue right at the top. And that's why I put the hanger on first. This isn't going over that, but I just figured it'd be easy to apply it this way. And then the last little bit of that rub-on transfer was this large tan colored flower, and I thought this was the perfect addition to the bottom of the sign, and this transferred super easily. I mean, this is sped up, but it really transferred very, very easily. And once again, take that plastic sheet on top and rub that in. And then I thought that the bow needed a little something else, so I took a black button and used more of that pink paint to paint this. And this took a few coats, and it still wasn't quite as bright as I wanted. I should have dug a little deeper to see if I could find a white button that would have been easier to paint, or I should have primed it with white paint. But hindsight's 2020. I stuck it on a piece of tape just to kind of hold it still while I painted it. And I did multiple coats. I did pretty thick coats. I didn't care if you could see all of the little holes, but I thought a little more touch of pink was perfect. So I put that in the middle of our bow, and that was it for this little sign. Let me know what you think about this. I love it. I think it's super cute, and I had fun with those pretty floral rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree. All right, so for this first one, this is a glass vase jar that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. It was probably 49 cents, I think. Picked it up on clearance, and I'm just cleaning it with some rubbing alcohol. But you can use any jar you've already got, something from the Dollar Tree, something that you've thrifted, whatever. And now I'm just going to give this a couple coats of a Waverly chalk paint in the color white. It did take a couple of coats to just get a really nice coverage. Just make sure you let it fully dry in between so that you don't pull the paint back off the glass. But this does hold really well. And yeah, I did a couple of coats. I think I ended up doing 3 coats altogether just to make sure that it was a really nice coverage. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. I like sharing budget-friendly, easy DIYs here on this channel. So for this first stencil, we're going to use a self-adhesive stencil from the Dollar Tree. I will say it is very sticky, which is good. It didn't pull the paint up or anything. This one is a really fine detail of it, and so I had to be really careful. It was kind of delicate. It didn't go all the way around, but I actually really liked how it looked. I felt like it still looked nice in the back. And I just wrapped this around, got it as straight as I could, and then we're going to stencil it. I'll show you this color paint on another one of the DIYs. I use the same one throughout the whole video. The key, of course, as always, is to make sure you do not have too much paint on your brush. I am using a stencil brush from the Dollar Tree for this DIY, and just, yeah, I didn't use too much. I did go back over a couple spots a couple times because I just didn't want to use too much paint at once. But this help, oh my goodness, I'm having a hard time with my words. The self-adhesive stamp does work, or oh my goodness, self-adhesive stencil. I could redo this, but I'm not going to. Did a really good job at not letting any bleed through. You just have to be careful pulling it off so you don't rip the stencil at all. And I'm going to show you just how I'm cleaning it. I'm just using a baby wipe right afterwards to get it off. It's just easier to do while the paint is still fairly wet, and then putting it back on the thing that it came from. I just wanted to show you the back side of this, and I thought it really came out cute. I'll show this to you again at the end. You could seal it with some Mod Podge also if you wanted as well. For this next DIY, I have this tag ornament from Dollar General. It was originally $1, but I got it on clearance. Probably paid 10 cents, maybe 20 cents, I don't know, but not very much. And I'm going to pull the hanger in the back with the beads off. It was just stapled in, so when I pulled that off, I had to use just a small flathead screwdriver to pull that out. And then I'm just sanding down the little holes. We're going to use the back side here. So I think I did end up, I don't think I ended up showing it to you. I started by painting it with a Waverly chalk paint and white. And then I went in with some spackling because you could still kind of see the holes. And then I painted it again. So just to put that in there for you. We will cover the front, which is now going to be the back, with some scrapbook paper at the end. But right now we're just going to paint this whole thing with Waverly chalk paint in white. I'm going to paint the edges as well as this back, which is now our front. And that did take a couple of coats. Now we're going to use these health adhesive stamps. Oh my goodness, stencils. Keep doing that. From Dollar Tree. Sorry, this got a little blurry. I think my head kept getting in the way, so it was getting it out of focus. These are from the Jot line. So this is from the stationary office area of Dollar Tree, not like the Crafter Square. And we're just going to use these individual letters. I like the font on this a lot and the natural spacing that happens because of I just had them end to end. I really liked how it looked, but you could of course let it dry and overlap the stencils a little bit to make the letters closer. I hope I'm making sense. This one was a little harder to not get any paint outside of the stencil, but I did not actually get any bleed through. But you can see a little bit around the outside of the squares. These are very fragile. Once again, the uppercase B on the right here, you can see there's a blank there because I ripped that one and could not use it. So these are very fragile, but they worked really well. I have to grab the D here just for a placement so that I can clean the E and the S and put them down again because I do need them. Again, I'm just going to write blessed on here. So my general thought of this stamp, or this stencil, I don't know why I keep saying stamp, this stencil along with the last one, the self-adhesive ones work really good as far as not having any bleed through. They are very fragile. If you're doing a lot of projects or large projects, or you're doing numerous things to sell or something, you may want a higher quality stencil. Here I am just going in with some white paint to clean up the edges there. My stencil brush was just a little bit bigger than the stencil itself. But I think for small DIY projects, these stencils are really pretty good. Just be careful. Like I said, they're fragile. I don't expect to be able to use them a ton of times before I'm likely to have ripped them. But I do feel like I'll be able to use them multiple times. And I got them both when they were only $1, but even for $1.25, I still feel like it's pretty good value. I'm going in with a little bit more of that pink salmon color on my brush, and I'm not really distressing it because distressed wouldn't be in this color, but I'm highlighting the edges, and I'm also dragging it across the top a little bit just to bring in a little bit more dimension and not have the flat white. I just thought that was a nice touch. I'm going to go in on the back with just a glue stick and some scrapbook paper. I'm using a pretty thick cardstock from Hobby Lobby. I have a ton of this from a pack that I purchased. I am making sure it's kind of straight because I want the planks to be straight. But this is a really thick one. It does not wrinkle very easily at all. I'm going to let that set for a minute before I trim it. So while that is just setting, the glue is drying just a little bit, I pulled off the beads that were on it, and I didn't really feel like painting any beads. So I just went through what I had, and I had a few white beads and some natural beads, and we're going to string this up to make a little tag. So I'm using just some white jute, I think is what it was, or white, I don't know. It's from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to put some tape on the end so that it's easy to thread the beads. I just created a very simple pattern, 2 natural, 1 white, and I did that a couple of times. And that's kind of all there is for that. Now you can make a tassel on this. I'm kind of making it similar to how it was. So the one end I'm going to make a little loop. You could hang this if you wanted, or you could just lay it on a tiered tray. Like I said, if you want, you can put a tassel on the other end of this. however you want to do that. But I'm just going to tie a knot, create a little loop here. Once again, this got out of focus, I think, because of my head. We're back to the tag. We're going to just trim off the paper. I'm just using a sharp cutting tool and a little cutting mat. This little cutting mat is very handy. It is from the Dollar Tree. Just to trim off the rest of this, and then I will go in with my nail file or sandpaper you can use, just sanding away from the paper so that you don't pull it back up to clean up the edges. So to attach this, this was stapled on the original. You could do that as well. You could also drill a hole if you want. I'm just tying a knot a few times here at the end. The string I was using was pretty thin compared to the hole on the beads, so I had to put, I don't know, 3 or 4 knots overlapping to just make it big enough to hold it in place. And then I'm just going to attach this on the back with a piece of tape. But for a more finished look, you could staple it or, like I said, drill a hole in it. But I tend to take apart my DIYs and redo them because I do a lot of DIYs for my channel. So I just thought this was simple. And you can't tell that it's taped anyway. We'll once again show this to you at the end. For our last DIY, this is also, I think, from Dollar General. It was $1, but I'm sure I got it on clearance. And we're going to just cut off the string. And this was actually stapled on. Dollar General's dollar items are put together much better than the Dollar Tree items as far as things being even, well secured. So anyways, I just used my little wire cutters, I think is what they are, to pull that off. And then I'm using my hairdryer to kind of soften up the glue. My hairdryer's heating element went on it, so I think I'm gonna actually have to buy an actual heat gun. But I managed to save the snowflake, but not the Noel. And then we're going to just sand that down and give this a couple coats of Waverly chalk paint. Once again, in the color white. I was kind of making these all match, like to go together, so you of course don't have to do that. You can do them all different, obviously with whatever colors you want. I do paint the edges and then the top, and I'm going to give that a couple of coats. And then I got a little bit of paint on the back, which I really didn't want to paint the back, so I just used my nail file to kind of sand off that paint and clean up the back side a little bit. Obviously, you don't have to do that. Now, these stencils, I believe, are from Hobby Lobby. They are phenomenal. I need to use these more often. They stick really good. They're large. So here's the paint I'm using. Ceramic Coat in the color Salmon, and this is from the company Plaid, and which is the same one as like Apple Barrel and Waverly, and lots of paints that you probably use are all from the company Plaid. So we're once again going in with our stencil brush. You don't want to go too thick with your paint, so you don't have any bleed through. I didn't want the gaps in the letter that the stencil provided, so I'm just going in with a small paintbrush. We're filling that in and cleaning up the edge. Once again, my head pops in, makes it go out of focus. Goodness, guys. Okay, so we're just going to clean that up, and then we're doing another self-adhesive stencil from Dollar Tree just for this little heart on the top. So, okay, I would say the same thing as I said on the other one, that this is a really nice stencil. It sticks really well. The problem with it is that it's one whole sheet. So it's kind of awkward to like use unless you're using the whole thing at once. So I'm spending some time showing you the stencils here because I wanted to kind of talk about them in this video. But I'm just once again cleaning it up really quick and was trying to lay it back down, and these little ones at the bottom that would offer like a lined border if you were using them as a stencil kept sticking to each other. So once again, be super careful with them. They're fragile. This one's not my favorite because, like I said, you have to use the whole stencil. I thought about cutting it apart, but then that seemed like that could make it even more fragile. So I don't know. Do with that information what you will. And then I'm just trying to figure out something to wrap around the top of this little house. I just felt like it needed something. I just kind of pulled out everything that I thought might work. I wanted to do the green leaves, but they were way too big. So I'm going to use this, I think it's called Berry Garland is the name of it, from Hobby Lobby, or not, well, Hobby Lobby sells it. Mine is from the Dollar Tree, and they sell it at different times of year in different colors. I'm just using the white one. I am going around the edges and kind of distressing that, just sanding that off a little bit to bring in some of that wood that was underneath. And then I'm just wrapping this around. This is a wired garland. And so I did not use any hot glue. Sorry, went out of frame. I did not use any hot glue or anything like that, but you certainly could do that if you wanted. But I just wrapped it around a couple times and used the wire to wrap it up kind of with itself. If you are enjoying this video, please give me a thumbs up. Giving the video a thumbs up is free for you. Well, everything you do is free for you. Subscribing, that's also free. That helps me out. It lets me know that you like my videos, and it lets YouTube know that you like my videos, and it makes them more likely to share my videos with others. So that's awesome. Please help me out if you enjoy this stuff. That's, yeah, just help me out. Just even if you don't enjoy it, you can still help me out because you could just be nice. Anyways, I hope that you're enjoying these. So for this last one, I'm using it's more of that cardstock that I had from Hobby Lobby. I just am using the back side of it because I wanted a white piece of paper. And this is a flexible stencil from Dollar Tree. I've used this before. I really do like this one. I used that salmon color for the center, and I just mixed a couple of greens that I had on hand to make a color that I liked for the vine. The brush I had for this made it a little bit harder to not have any bleed through because I was just trying to use a smaller brush, but it wasn't too bad. And I go for a little bit more rustic look, so, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm just going to cut this out using my paper cutter. You can use your scissors, but we're just going to cut this out to size. I started out bigger and then worked my way down because I didn't want to cut off too much and have to redo it. And then I'm just using this cute little frame from the Dollar Tree. I'm leaving it as is. It's got this little clip and this burlap bow at the top, and I just wanted to put a little picture in there that I knew I could change out anytime, so this is not permanent. I can use this for anything I want in the future, and so I'm just trimming it up to get to a good size to fit in that frame well. All right, so starting off for this first one, this is a piece I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and it's pretty cute on its own. You could just put a picture on that little clip, but this is a crafting channel, so we do crafts. I'm using my hairdryer to heat up the sticker to take off the back, to take it off the back. That made sense. I think it made sense. To try to sand out some of the stickiness. I'm going to end up painting everything, but I wasn't really sure in the beginning because I start out my projects a little unsure where I'm going to head with it. So took off the little clip, sanded the hole, and we're going to paint this with Waverly chalk paint in the color Fern. Now all of these colors I'm going to do pretty messy until the end. We're going to be going for a like chippy, rustic, farmhouse, whatever adjective you want to use, old look to this. So I have seen some old chippy things with like the green coming through, and I really like that look, so that's kind of what I'm going to go for in a couple of these today. So I'm going to paint this, and then I'm painting like all of the inside edges pieces, which is just like an MDF finish. That I'm painting kind of roughly because we won't be doing our chippy technique on those spots. So I'm just giving a rough color. And at this point, I didn't want all of the green to get on the back piece since you can just kind of see through this item, and that is why I have a piece of paper there. And then I'm just taking what did I even just say there? Wow, guys, I'm struggling with my words, but I'm not starting this over. So I'm just taking a candle, and we're rubbing the wax on different parts of this. And this is one way to get the chippy look. And then we're going to go over with Mineral, Waverly chalk paint in the color Mineral, and we're going to paint the same, kind of a rough, not, you know, amazing coat of paint. We're going to just do the same thing again. So we're going to paint with Mineral on the surface, and then in between all of the little edges, we'll just do kind of like a rough coverage there, not worried about a super amazing coverage. I also want to say, if you are new here, welcome to my channel. I like to share fun, easy, budget-friendly DIYs here on this channel. Usually I'm just doing home decor for the most part. Not always, but for the most part. And if you're into that type of thing, I hope that you consider sticking around. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, make sure that you don't miss out on my future videos. We're going to do the candle wax again, and basically wherever you put the candle wax, you're going to see it hinder the paint from sticking. So hopefully you'll understand that at the end. You do want to make sure your paint is thoroughly dry, obviously, before you do the candle wax. You're not just pulling paint off. And then we're going in with our top coat, which is Waverly Chalk Paint in the color white. I'm going to do a bit of a better coating here, although all of the little inside pieces and all of the little holes of the window, I guess you could say, that I'm still just kind of doing a little bit of a rough coat because I want a little bit of the mineral, a little bit of the fern color to kind of peek through so that it's kind of got a little bit of everything showing there. And then I decided that I wanted to paint the whole back. And as you can see, like the inside of the kickstand, so to speak, because you're just going to see it right through it. So I did not worry about distressing the back at all, but the front we are, and I'm going in with my little scrapey tool, and I'm just scraping off mainly where I'm trying to remember, where the wax is, or just kind of the whole thing, but it's going to really pull up where the wax is, and this will reveal the different layers of the paint. And I'm emphasizing where I emphasize the wax, which is, I said axe, not wax, which is a lot on like the ridges, the edges, that's where I feel like natural distressing would occur. So that's what I was going for. And then also went over roughly with some sandpaper as well, just to kind of rough up more if I could. And then we're just going to give it a wipe down with a baby wipe to get off all of that dust and debris. And then I'm going to just poke in the hole that was there originally with a little sharp tool. We're not putting the little clip back on though. I wanted a screw, and the one that was in there was too small for what I wanted. So whenever I take things apart, I save all the pieces and keep them in my craft supply. So I pulled out a screw, and we're just going to put that in, not all the way. I just wanted something to hang a little wreath on. So that's what I'm going for here. Now the wreath that I'm using was off of something at some point, but I don't know, it's not that great. So I'm going to add to it with this leaf garland. This is I think it's this might have been in the ribbon section at Hobby Lobby. I'm not really sure, but I've been using it for a while, and I'm just going to add to my existing wreath, but you could always just make a wreath just out of this, or use anything your little heart desires, but I just wanted to kind of add to it a little bit, and we're going to make ourselves a little wreath. Trim that off. It is wired, so it just wraps around really easily. And then I want to make a little bit of a bow. Sorry for the lighting change. I did this over a course of many days. This is why it took me so long to get this video out. It's been a little while since I've had one. So thanks for your patience with me. I like to put out one video a week, but that hasn't been happening. So I made a little bow out of that lace ribbon from Dollar Tree. And I could have just hooked the wreath itself on the screw, but I felt like it was going to not go on as easy. So I'm just going to use a piece of floral wire, feed that through, make a little loop, and trim that off. We will use that to hang that on, and I will show you the finished product at the end. So for this next DIY, this little easel, chalkboard easel, I believe it was from Dollar General. It was $1, and I probably paid less than that. But Dollar Tree has had similar items, and I'm just using these gold butterfly rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree. I love these little pink handled scissors. They might have had different colors as well, but they are from the Dollar Tree in their Crafter Square area. They're little tiny precision scissors, and it's very handy for these types of things. So I'm going to just tell you that I struggled with this. And you can't even see it totally well because there's reflection on the plastic covering of the rub-on transfer. I don't know if the issue was the chalkboard finish that I was doing this on. These particular transfers don't have a lot of stickiness to them, so as I was rubbing it on, it was shifting, and then I was trying to place it back to where it was to continue. So yeah, this DIY is literally just putting transfers on this sign. And I do like how it came out. I think it's going to be a really cute filler piece, probably to be used on a tiered tray is kind of my thoughts. And it's nice to have stuff that doesn't have borders in it. Sorry, my head. I was really focusing on this, guys, so I kept getting in the way of the camera. And but once I started here, I was like, I like these rub-on transfers. This labor of love is going to continue. And I continued until I got a few of them on there. So I do like how it came out. The gold rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree definitely are not as easy as some of the other ones, but I'm going to show you me using these on the next DIY as well, just so that you can see that they're not always as difficult to use, but they were still a little bit of a challenge. So that is it for this one. I'll give you another glimpse of it at the end as well. All right, so for this next one, I'm using the sign that I picked up at Hobby Lobby on clearance, but there are similar shaped and size signs at Dollar Tree. So once again, I changed my mind on some of this. So we're going to start by giving it a coat of Waverly chalk paint in the color ink, which I do think was a good choice because it probably covered the writing in the back better than white, but you're going to see a drastic change in appearance here. So giving this a coat of Waverly chalk paint and ink on the inside and the whole frame. If you are enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. It's a very easy way to help me out. It lets YouTube know that you are enjoying what I'm doing, and it makes them more likely to share my video with others. It also lets me know that you're enjoying what I'm doing and helps me know what you guys like to see. So just give it a little thumbs up. It's easy. Just do it. If you haven't done it yet, please do it. All right, so moving on, I was going to go for more of the similar look of the first piece. So I'm going in with some Waverly chalk paint in Fern. And yeah, we're just going to skip past some of this. So now I'm going in with Waverly chalk paint in the color white. I do a couple coats of that. I was trying to go for another way to get some of this like chippy, rustic, old look, and it worked, but I don't think I did it the best way. But you know, sometimes I just like to just try things. I fly by the seat of my pants when I do my crafting, in case you haven't figured that out. And then I was like, I don't really want to do the black. I thought I was going to do the black because I was going to do all those gold butterflies, and I liked how it looked in the packaging, contrast against the black, but then I didn't like it, so then I went in with white. So the inside, we're just going to give that a couple of coats of white. And then once everything was dry, I tried to sand off the edges for some of that black and green to pull through, which did work on the edges. So it wasn't like it was a total loss. It definitely still rustic. I was going to say rusticed it up, but that's definitely not a word. But I think you can make up words. That's what I've seen. Rustic. I rustified it. I made it rustic. So there you go. You can see the colors did come through, and I do like how it came out. So now what I'm going to do is put the gold butterfly rub-on transfers around the frame of this, and it did transfer easier than on the chalkboard sign, but they still just do not have any, like a lot of the other ones have more stickiness when you put them down. These just want to shift on you. So I still like them, but it's a lot more work than the other ones. So if you have them already, you can make it happen, but just know that it's going to be a little bit more work. They also have these little flower pieces on there, and I just kind of did these around the whole thing. I did curve some of the butterflies kind of like over the edge, wrapped it around a little bit. I just kind of wanted a little glimpse of them on the frame. And I do, like I said, I like how it came out. But hang with me, we got more in this journey because this thing takes a lot of different turns. So that is how the frame came out. Love that. So far, so good. Then I take this stencil from the Dollar Tree, and I was going to do the It's Good to Be Home. And the words themselves fit in there, but the stencil itself did not. So I had to bend it, which is fine. It's a flexible stencil. I could have trimmed the edges, but I didn't want to mess it up. I've used the stencil before. I will plan to use it again. So I just maneuver in there, tape it down, and I thought I'll go in with these paint markers. I will have less bleed through. And I didn't like it. I also wasn't glad that I chose black. I don't know. It just wasn't coming together how I wanted it to. But we're gonna paint it here, and then I'm going to fill in the gaps on the words on the top because I wasn't giving up on it yet. And then I finally said, nope, not happy with it. There's a lot of bleed through on the M and the E on home, which you can't really see, but there was. So I go back through. I sand that down in the middle. Cover it again with some white paint, and we're just going to do a very, very light dry brush of the color Fern just to kind of tie in the background with the edges. Guys, I sat on this project for a couple days because I was just like, I had this idea in my mind, but it was just like a general idea, and I could not figure out how to make it happen. But I did make it happen. I found these word rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree in my stash. It was just a whole sheet of random words that I've been using. I don't have a lot of them left. And when I think of butterflies, I really wanted to do butterflies. I don't know why. It's not like butterflies has always been my thing, but I like butterflies. I think they're beautiful. I think they scream spring. And anyways, I think their transformation is beautiful and, I don't know, symbolic in a lot of ways. Anyways, I picked out Discover the Journey because the transformation of a caterpillar to a butterfly is an amazing journey, and the beauty on the other side is just awesome. So that's what I'm going with. And then I picked up these stickers from the Dollar Tree. They have a ton of these. These are like some 3D pop out ones. They have a lot of, some with like a lot more gold. I wasn't really going for that, but I love these ones. I love the colors of these, but there was probably like half a dozen different ones to choose from, literally. So I just picked out the ones I liked the best. I'm using a little bit of like a tacky glue. I don't know, the sticker on the back of these might be good enough, but I didn't want to risk it, so I just put on some glue there as well. Back to the one that was kind of a fail, but I will still definitely use this as a filler piece on a tiered tray. And then these are the two winners of the show to me. I'm very pleased with how these both came out. The little window frame with the wreath and then my butterfly sign. I know there's a shadow on there, but I do love how this came out. All right, so starting off, I've got this bird. This is from the Dollar General. They are usually $1, but I'm fairly confident I picked this one up on clearance for like 10 cents. Dollar General clearance after seasonal stuff or after season stuff is great finds. And I'm just painting that with some Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster. Mine is a little bit thinned out because I've had to put a little bit of water at the bottom because, well, I'm at the bottom and it's older and it's thicker. So it's not a super, I think I did 2 coats with it because it was a little bit thinner, but that's okay. And we are going to then go in with some clear wax from Waverly, and I'm tinting it with, or mixing it with some Waverly chalk paint in the color Elephant. Now, I was thinking I may have done my ratios off. I feel like I should have done less paint, more wax, but it works out fine in the end. I'm brushing it on pretty thick, and then I'm using a paper towel to wipe it off. It was initially a little bit darker than I wanted, so I just really worked the paper towel to wipe it off and just kept going until I got the desired look. I love these little birds because they have so much texture, and so I just wanted to bring that texture out but mute it down a little bit for my decor. But you, of course, could do this any color you wanted, and you could use a colored wax if you wanted as well. I thought about using my antique wax, but I didn't. I went with this. So wiping it on, brushing it on, wiping it off, and you can see here I'm just pressing a little bit harder in some areas, just really wanting to highlight all of the texture. And then I've got this candle, I don't know, holder, pedestal, something or other, and a terracotta pot. The blue base is actually from Hobby Lobby, and I picked it up on clearance. You can see it was a little bit chipped. It was after season, and I paid, I don't know, 20 cents for it. I think I paid less than that. I got like 3 of them because it was so cheap. Anyways, I'm using some super glue gel, and I was trying to use my hot glue gun, and I was not figuring it out. I've had this one for years and haven't been able to figure it out. I figured it out later in the video, but at this point I wasn't. So I'm just going in with some super glue gel, and I was trying to figure out how long it's supposed to take before it holds, and I moved on a little too quickly, you'll see in a second. But then I'm going to go in with some Mod Podge. I'm using the dishwasher safe one just because that's what I had around. And you can see it popped off. And the danger of that was if I grabbed it with my hand, I got super glue gel on my fingers. But I had to keep moving because I was like, the Mod Podge is going to be streaky and clumpy if I don't keep doing it. I'm doing the Mod Podge so that the paint will adhere better to the ceramic base here. Anyways, then I'm going in with a little bit more super glue, and we're going to weight it down to let it fully dry. You can see I kept wrapping my paintbrush from the Mod Podge in some plastic wrap, and that's just so that I didn't have to completely wash it in between. That was keeping it from drying out, and that worked really well. And then I'm going in with more of the Waverly chalk paint in plaster. I did a couple coats on the whole thing because I was wanting to give it a good base coat. And then I'm going in with some greens and a brown. I use a little bit of the gray paint that was on the bird. And guys, I'm going to take you through the process. So I wanted a really weathered, old pot looking piece that looked like it had just been out in the garden for a ton of time and a bird comes and makes its home. So at first here, it looks like I'm going for some type of camo look. I was dotting it on, smudging it, smearing it, wiping it, blending it. And at first I just thought, oh my gosh, what did I do this thing to this thing? I'm gonna have to start over again. Um, I went with the greens because of like, moss and things like that growing up on it. Um, it's gonna be okay in the end. I actually really, really like how it turned out. Um, but this went through a little bit of a journey, this whole process. So I decided I needed to lighten it up, so I went back in with some plaster, but just did a dry brush on the whole thing. And this is really sped up. I know my hand's moving crazy here, but this portion of the video would have been very long if I didn't do that. Then at one point I was trying to layer too quickly. Things were not dried in between. So I felt like I was just destroying everything. Anyways, I pull out my hairdryer. I have a low cool temp setting on my hairdryer, and that's what I usually use to dry paint. And we're just going to build and build, brush, wipe, brush, wipe. I did go in with some like green and, no, I think brown in a couple spots that I went thicker, and I just dabbed it with the paper towel instead of wiping it because I wanted some darker spots. I wanted rusty, mossy, really old. So I'll show it to you at the end. And then I just put a little napkin in the pot to fill it in a little bit, and then I just made a rough nest with the moss. I did not glue this. I did not even attach this to the top. I just set the bird on top, and I thought this was really cute. Like I said, I will show this to you at the end of the video. So even when projects look like they're not coming out, don't give up, keep going, and it still may end up working. Okay, so for our next one, I have this little tin house from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to give it a coat of Mod Podge. Once again, Mod Podge helps paint stick to certain surfaces better. So that's what we're doing here. And then once it was dry, going in with Waverly chalk paint in the color Celery. I love the color Celery and Moss for my everyday decor and for spring. I just love incorporating those colors. So we're going to give this a couple of coats. And I was trying really hard to keep the backside clean too because I wasn't sure how that was going to end up working, but you'll see. So we're going to let that dry. I have this canvasy burlappy bag from Dollar Tree. As you can see, I've used portions of it before. So I'm going to use that. I'm trying out these stamps. I've actually used these stamps before. They're from the Dollar Tree. And I tried out by stamping it on paper. And then I tried it on the fabric, and I didn't like it. It wasn't working. But I figured I'd show this to you anyway. I tried it a couple times. You'll see I'm just moving up on the material. And now we're going to use a stencil. This is also from the Dollar Tree. It comes in one of those wheel stencils, and this is a bird, and I'm just covering up a branch that was in there for like the bird to be sitting on because I didn't want to stencil that. And I'm going to stencil that with some, I think I'm just using some like white acrylic paint by Apple Barrel, and that worked. So we're gonna go with that. And I'm going back and forth because this is just how the project worked out. So I'm going to seal the paint in on this with some more Mod Podge so that it does not chip off. And then we're going to take this material and we're going to attach it. So I'm going to start by hot gluing. I did put on some finger protectors because I was using the hot temp glue setting, and this material is obviously, see-through. So I have a little silicone spatula brush thing. It's actually from the makeup department of the Dollar Tree, and my finger protectors. And we're going to first hot glue around the circle opening because I wanted to make sure this bird was centered and the material didn't shift. And then we'll go around and hot glue around the entire house because I wanted it to just look more finished in the back, and I thought if I covered the whole thing with the material, it would look more finished. If you are enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out so much, and it lets YouTube know that you're liking what I'm doing, and they think maybe someone else will like this video too, and they're more likely to share my video with others. Once the hot glue is all done, we're going to just trim this off and make sure that it's trimmed down to size and that nothing is peeking out the front of the house, so it just has a nice clean finish. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, if you have not yet subscribed, I would love it if you would consider doing so. Just hit that subscribe button and make sure you turn on the bell notification next to it. If you are subscribed and your notification bell isn't turned on, make sure you do that so that you will be notified when I upload a new video. I decided to cut out a little bit more material to layer it because it was a little too see-through and the bird kind of got lost. I could have done a colored bird, but I really did want to keep it a little bit more neutral. But adding another layer of the fabric helped a lot. And once again, I'll show you that at the end. For our last DIY, I have this metal hello sign from the Dollar Tree. They had it in a couple of different phrases. Or words, I should say. I don't remember. I think one was garden and then maybe spring. I'm not sure. Once again, we're going to cover this with Mod Podge, and then I'm going in with some paints. I've got Lime Sorbet and Daybreak. These are both from Plaid. They sent them to me a while back, and I wanted to go for something bright and springy. This is going to be going outside on a wreath, and I'll show you how we put that together. So I'm going to paint the bird yellow, and the rest of it we're going to do in that pretty green color. And I just took my time. I didn't want to make a mess on this. Because this is going on a wreath, the backside would be seen from the inside of my house because my door is glass. So I ended up cleaning up the back of this metal sign with like a baby wipe for any paint that got on the back. But I was trying to be neat while I was painting, and this was going to take a couple of coats. So once again, I went in with my hairdryer on the cool setting and dried it. And I did probably, I think I might have done 3 or 4 coats in the yellow for the bird and maybe 3 for the green. But I just wanted a nice bright look, and it wasn't hard, but it did take a little bit of time because I had to do a couple of coats. It probably would have done less if I had Waverly chalk paint, but I didn't have the colors I wanted for this sign. And then once it was done, once again, we're going to seal it with some Mod Podge. I think I did 2 coats of this just because I wanted to protect it more since it would be outside. I think there was an outdoor Mod Podge, but I do not have that, and I need to look into that. But I, once again, gave that a coat, and I was just kind of wiping off the Mod Podge as I went through the little cutouts because I didn't want globs of Mod Podge drying on the back side, because once again, you'd be able to see the back of this through my door, and I just wanted it to look nice. And I ended up getting this grapevine wreath from Hobby Lobby, and for some reason I had a heck of a time getting this tag off because it was on with like a thick metal ring. But I got it off, or you could just tuck it away so it can't be seen. But this wreath was $4.99. It was not on sale. When I went in, all of the wreaths were half off, but this particular one wasn't. But it's $4.99, and I know that I can make it over and reuse it over and over again. So I'm using this berry garland. It's like a white and green. It is from the Dollar Tree, but Hobby Lobby has it as well. At the Dollar Tree, it is called, I think, berry garland. I don't know what it is called at Hobby Lobby. And then we're going to, and it's wired, so I'm just wrapping that around, and I'm going to use some floral wire to firmly attach the hello. I did it nice and tight because the bottom wouldn't be attached, and our front porch gets a lot of like wind and sun, so I wanted to kind of hold it in place. So I just used some floral wire to do so, and I almost went with a different wreath form from like the Dollar Tree, but I couldn't find it the day I went out looking for it. And I don't want to spend a lot of money on my wreaths. Like I said, my front porch gets so much sun that everything fades really quick. So I really like things that are inexpensive and that I can change up. And so I figured this grapevine wreath wouldn't look too bad, even if it did get faded. And if it did get too bad, I could also spray paint it to freshen it up. So I can change this out for the different seasons. Anyways, I'm just attaching a scrap piece of like jute twine on the back, just tied it and then tied a little loop to hang it on my front door. So that's all I'm doing. I could have used wire, but I was trying to minimize things on the back of the wreath that could scratch my front door. So I'm going to show it to you not hung up, and then I will show it to you hung up, but I wasn't sure how well the shot would come out because it was going to be on a glass door. So that is how it came out. I do love it, and the wreath itself is pretty subtle, but the hello is nice and bright. And here is my little bird nest that made its home in an old rustic pot from the backyard, and I think I got the look that I was going for, even though it was a little journey to get there. And here's the house. All right, so for this one, we were using this little house piece. This was from Hobby Lobby. I bought it on clearance, way marked down, but you will find similar things at Dollar Tree as well. And these flower stickers from the Dollar Tree. So these have a pretty good stickiness to them, but I am going to use some hot glue just to make sure that it stays on. And we're just going to glue these all over the front of the house, just in whatever design that you want. You could also just do this on a sign if you don't have one of the house shaped pieces. The same concept would work on other shapes, obviously. And now we're gonna just go in and give a good coat of white Waverly chalk paint. I actually do 2 coats. I do get the edges as well, even though they're already white, but just so that everything kind of looks cohesive and we have the same shades and finishes and all of that. So I'm trying to do a really good coverage, get around all of the edges, but then wipe away any excess so that it's not like goopy and globby. Are those proper like crafting terms? We don't want any globs of paint around the edges of the flowers. So once that's all dry, we're going to mix some Waverly chalk paint in the color Celery with some Waverly wax. Now I am mixing it with this to tint it because I only have the clear wax, but I'm learning that that's not totally a bad thing because you can just mix it with paint and give you a tinted color. Now I'm just going to mix this all together, go in with a stencil brush and really go in and work in all of those grooves around the flowers. Wanted to add some more wax in here. And I kind of forgot when I first started doing this that I'm going to brush it on and wipe it off, but ultimately I remembered before I was done. But we're going to really emphasize the ridges on the flowers, but then I am going to go in with a little bit across the whole thing, including the sides, just to bring that color in throughout the whole thing. And then we're going to go in with a paper towel and like buff off and wipe off the excess on the whole thing, but really on the flowers. So what you're kind of left with is that color in the grooves, and it really just helps them stand out and pop. And I just love how this looks. And again, this is like a piece with some detail, but it's also a neutral piece with like no words on it because I love words, but I feel like I have so many things with the words. And I love this will just be a great little shelf filler piece. And then once again, I'm going in with some Mod Podge because I just like to coat everything with Mod Podge. And that is all that there is for this one. I love how it came out. I think it's really pretty. For this first one, I have this little bird figurine. This is from the Dollar General, so it was only $1. You can pick up any little figurine at a thrift store or Dollar Tree, anywhere that you like, and we're just going to paint it. So I've got some Waverly chalk paint in the color white, and I'm going to paint all of this in about 1.5 coats. It almost covered it in one, but I was really trying to make sure it wasn't like drippy or goopy at all because I wanted to make sure I didn't like take away any of like the ridges and the texture. I loved this one because it has so much texture on it. And then I let it dry so that I could do the bottom, and I wanted to get the whole thing. And then once it is dry, I'm taking some Waverly wax. Now I realized that I had accidentally bought the Waverly wax in clear, and I had a couple people comment on one of my videos that you can just add white paint to it to get the white Waverly wax. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then I thought, I probably can add any color to it. So I use a lot of the celery color in my everyday decor, which is usually also my spring and summer decor because everything else is pretty more heavily themed. And so I added some celery paint to the Waverly wax, and I am brushing it on and then wiping it off with a paper towel. Here I'm kind of messing around with it. I wasn't really sure how thick I wanted to get. So I go a little bit thicker here, and I just make sure to get in all of the grooves. And this is a really fun thing to do to any like figurine that you find. Thrift stores have a lot of this kind of stuff, and you might not like the colors of it. It might not be your style, but this is a really fun way to kind of update it and make it work for you. So I just kept going until I had the desired look and really made sure I got into all of the little ridges. So that's what I'm doing here. We're going to brush it on. Sorry, I kept going out of frame a couple times. I'm going to brush it on and then wipe it off. And that is it. I love how this came out. I think it's a really cute addition to my shelves. And then I have this piece that this was, I believe, from last year, but they have them this year. It was a part of there was 3 of these attached to a ribbon. This is the only one I have left, and I'm going to try to rip off the paper best I can. You can decide if you want to do this or not. I wanted my piece to look finished. We're going to use the other side, but we're going to paint this side as well. You could also just cover it with paper or leave it, and we're going to give some really good coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color white. I'm making sure to get all of the edges and both sides. So I let it dry and flip it over just to get everything really good. Hindsight, I probably could have just connected all of the pieces together and then painted it, and that would have saved me some paint. But you'll see what I mean in a second here. I've got this little back to a picture frame that I saved when I used the picture frame for another DIY. My camera kept falling. I'm going to give this a good coat of paint as well, just because I wanted it to look more finished. So this is where I'm saying I could have just connected it first and then painted it because I didn't need to paint the whole back of the sign. Anyways, I'm using this Gorilla Wood glue. I'm going to put a good amount on. I probably put a little too much because I had to keep cleaning up where it was oozing. And we're going to attach this. I wasn't sure if hot glue was going to work as well because the back was fully painted and I just wanted a really good hold. So I just wanted to make a stand. If you don't have the back of a picture frame, you could easily use some tumbling tower blocks or something else. But this is what I had, and so I'm using it, and I'm just using these little clamps from the Dollar Tree to hold it down and give this a good amount of time for it to fully dry. So now I'm taking these wall stickers. They're from the Dollar Tree. They carry them in different designs at different times. Dollar General also has a really good selection as well. And I'm just making a really simple spring decor. I wanted something without words on it. So I'm just taking some of these butterflies, but we're going to switch it up a little bit. This seemed a little bit too, I don't know, boring to me. So we're going to go along the edges with some antique wax, and I didn't have too much on my brush, but I also didn't go too light. I really wanted to define these edges. I love the texture of these edges, the design of these edges, and I wanted it to make it stand out. And then I'm also going to go across the whole thing with some antique wax, you can see, and then wiping that off as well. So just not wanting to go too heavy, but really wanted to age this a little bit and give it some texture. And as you can see here, I also went in with some more of that celery because that is in a lot of my decor. Very, very much a dry brush. I did a lot of in between the flowers, but I did do a little bit over the flower, not the flowers, these are butterflies, a little bit over the butterflies as well, just to make sure that it all looked kind of cohesive. And then we're going to seal it really good with some Mod Podge just to make sure everything stays well. And here it is all finished. And again, I think it's just a cute, nice addition to the shelf. And I love to add things that aren't just words. Otherwise, I end up with everything has words. So these are some wordless DIYs. Okay, so for this first DIY, I have this wooden cube. This is one of those boxes from the Dollar Tree that has a little drawer in it. So I guess it's a drawer, like the little cutouts on the drawer. This is the outer piece of it. And I have previously, obviously, done a DIY with it and stained it and painted it and put a heart on it. We're going to redo it. So I popped the heart off, and then I'm taking the scrap of paper that I got on clearance at Hobby Lobby. And this pack of paper is mostly Christmas, but I know this is like red and green, but it doesn't look at all Christmassy to me. So I'm using it. And I'm just going to cut my paper. This was perfect. I just cut it into quarters, and that was the right size for this box. I'm not going, it's just shy, like it's just small, a little bit smaller on each side, but it's okay because we're going to be covering that up. So it really did work perfect, and I'm just using a Dollar Tree glue stick and going to glue on each of the sides, or each of the papers on all four sides. And I'm using this little roller tool that Plaid sent me. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's supposed to be used for like Mod Podging, but it worked great even for this with the glue stick. And I love this tool. Really does help smooth things out and not have any bubbles and stuff. So now we're taking some popsicle sticks, and I'm going to cut 8 of them down for each corner. So 2 for each corner, and I'm just cutting them down to the proper height, making sure that they're, what they need to be before I go ahead and cut them all down. Then once they're all cut, you want to just sand them, try to smooth them out a little bit. They're not going to be exactly perfect, but smooth them out. And then we're taking this white paint by Apple Barrel, which is also from Plaid, and I'm going to give these a coat of paint, maybe 2, just getting all of the sides and the ends, and then just doing the front. I didn't have to do the back on these, and just giving them a nice coat of paint. And then I also have this wooden flower. This came from Dollar Tree as well in a pack from Valentine's Day, I think, for Valentine's time. And I just gave that a coat of white paint as well. I painted the wood side so that I didn't have to do as many coats as I would if I painted it over the red. And now we're coming back to the box. I kind of go back and forth just so I can let things dry. And we're going to give this a coat of Mod Podge just to help it stick, and make sure to do the whole thing so that it has the same finish. And then once that was dry, we're going to take a little bit of hot glue, and we're going to do our little corners on this box. This is just going to be a little decorative planter box for faux plants, obviously. And I'm just putting these ones right all the way up to the edge. And then you're seeing when I do the opposite, I'm going to do the same thing. And I do as best I can to push it all the way up so that there's not like a gap in between where the two meet. And then any hot glue that kind of oozes out, I just kind of scraped it off with my finger or my fingernail and got that nice and smooth. We are now going to glue with a hot glue on our little rows, and this is just going to be the front of our box. And now we're going to do some finishing touches. You can see the kind of the gaps where the two pieces meet. And so I'm going to take this lightweight spackling from the Dollar Tree and just fill that in the best I can. It actually works really easy, and let that dry and then give it a light sanding. And then I'm going to go back in to just touch up with a little bit more paint. And then I could have stopped here, but I have these little pearl strips from, I don't know what else to call them, from the Dollar Tree. And I used them recently on another DIY. And so I just kind of thought it would be nice to match that. You can see it right here. So I'm just cutting them down to size, and just going to put those on each of the popsicle sticks, if that makes sense. And that way all my pieces, they're like the same but different. Anyways, this is how it came out. I thought it was super cute, and I just popped a Dollar Tree plant in it, and that's it. Our next DIY, I have this wooden house that I picked up for Hobby Lobby on clearance for 89 cents, but you can get similar pieces at the Dollar Tree, and I just sanded it down, and we're going to give it a coat of pink paint. This pink paint I have had forever, and it had some clumps in it, so it kind of gave me a little bit of a hassle, but I made it work. And then I threw this paint out. I threw out quite a few paints when I got done with these DIYs. I was like, this is ridiculous. Why am I still trying to use these? They're not that expensive. But anyways, now I'm going to clean up where I got a little bit of the pink on the edges, and just decided to do a coat of white paint all around the edges just to kind of, smooth it out, make it all look cohesive, I guess, and also to fix my little boo-boos with the pink paint. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out. And say hello in the comments, because that helps me out and it's fun to chat with you guys. Now I'm going in and kind of dry brushing. I'm doing a little bit more on the edges of the house. And then I'm also just kind of going over like the whole thing just to give it a little bit of texture. I don't know. I just didn't want it to be like a flat pink. Just seemed too plain. And now I'm going to just wrap it with a piece of white yarn. I thought that was fun instead of twine, and just a piece of greenery that I had lying around. I'm not really sure what it came off of, but it was by itself, so I thought that would be a good piece. And we're just going to tie it on. I'm not hot gluing it or anything. I'm just going to tie it on. Then I'm going to tie a little knot, and then I end up sliding the knot over to like the side. You'll see in just a second, but we're just going to tie it with a knot, secure it. And then I'm going to make a little finger bow here with some more yarn. I just wrapped it around 3 fingers. I didn't want a really big one. You wrap it around a few times and then tie it in the middle. And then I'm hot gluing that off to the side on where the knot is. And I thought this was really cute, very quick and easy to do, and will be a nice little filler on my shelf. We're going to be using this piece that I got from the Dollar General for only $1. I thought this little bird was going to be a really fun piece to DIY with. So I'm going to start off by using my heat gun to help me get the label off. It just makes it a little bit easier. And then I'm going to pry off the flower from the front. Now, this was in with like a nail, and so when I pulled off the flower, there was a piece sticking up. So I just pounded that in with my hammer so that it wouldn't be, protruding at all. And then I decided I wanted to take the paper off. You could sand it, or you could just try painting over it or put paper over it, but for me, I wanted to get a clean slate. So I'm dampening it with some water and then a paper towel, moistening that really good, and then just letting that sit. And then you just scrape it off and repeat as needed. I've shared that many times, so we're going to skip over that. I'm going to paint this bird with a little textured paint, so I'm taking some Waverly chalk paint in the color white and some baking soda and mixing that together with my chippy brush. You can make this as thick as you want or as thin as you want, just based on the texture that you are going for. And then the chippy brush, using the chippy brush, I should say, we're just going to stipple that across the bird. We're going to do the front and the back with this. Now, I've heard, I know some friends that use salt wash, which is a paint additive. It's actually designed for this, and that gives a little bit of a stiffer texture. I find that the baking soda works fine for me, but I will say that I wanted to make sure to not go on too thick, because as I stood this up to dry, because I did both sides at the same time, it kind of wanted to drop a little bit, so I kind of just kept stippling that a couple times as it dried. So I hope that's making sense, but you could also just do one side at a time. All right, so we're gonna let that completely dry, and then I'm gonna take these paint inlays, and I got some tips about the paint inlays from the last, I think it was the last video or a recent video, and that is to trim as close to the design as possible so that you don't have any outline from the paper. I don't know that this would have been a problem on this one because we're gonna use this paint inlay on the textured paint, but I went ahead and kind of fussy cutted this and did the best I could, and then I'm just spraying that with my spray bottle. Then I'm gonna go over where I'm going to put the paint inlays with some paint. No baking soda here, just a little bit of paint to lay the paint inlays in there. Now, I was expecting it to not give maybe as good of coverage because of the textured, but I wanted it to look rustic anyway, and you're gonna see we're going to kind of make it look that way even more. But the paint inlay did work really good even on the textured surface. Dabbing that with my paper towel to press it in. We'll do that in a couple spots, and then once that dries, dampening it once again with with water and a paper towel, and then peeling off our inlays. And I'm gonna repeat that a couple times in different places on this bird. And I probably could have gotten it to transfer better if I'd pressed in more, but I really just wanted this to be kind of rough, roughly in there because I wanted it to be rustic. So we're going to do that on a couple different places, and you do that however you would want to do. We're done with the paint inlays. I let that all dry completely and fully, and now I'm going in with a stencil brush and a very, very little antique wax, and we're going to go over the edges, and I'm going over pretty much the whole thing, but I'm just building on the, I didn't want it to go too heavy at first. On the back side, I'm going to go across the outside and the beak, because where I'm going to display this, you may see it from the back side. And then from the front, I just kind of went all over. You'll see that in just a second. And then once everything was fully dry, I'm sealing this in with a good coat of Mod Podge. I wanted to seal in the paint inlay, I wanted to seal in the antique wax, and I wanted to seal in that textured paint that we had. That'll just give a nice firm outer coat or top coat and keep everything sitting pretty. And this one was so fun. I love how this came out. I made it look a little bit more rustic and dirty. I love both sides. I don't know if there's a favorite here. I like them both, but let me know what you guys think about this one. For this next one, I'm taking a book, and I did paint it white. I don't know that that was necessary, but you can buy a book at the Dollar Tree or use one that you have that maybe you don't want to read. We're not ruining the book, we're just covering it up. So obviously if you like the cover, you don't want to do this, but we're going to use some peel and stick wallpaper from Dollar Tree. Now, I'm also using some Mod Podge here, and that is because I used the paint that I left over from another project, so it was a textured paint, and I wasn't sure how well it would stick, and I just wanted to make sure it stuck really good. I feel like the peel and stick wallpaper should be sticky enough to not need to do that, but you also may not even need to have painted this book at all and just covered the book cover. But this is how I chose to do it. And we're going to just line this up and pressing that in, and then I'm going to make sure to get the spine of the book as well. And we're just covering this book. Now I've often, and I will show you it in a minute, displayed with some other books. You can also just use like brown craft paper, and I've done that on many books, and you don't touch really the cover at all, because you can just kind of tape it like back in the day when we used to wrap books in school. I wanted to do this one with some pattern and texture, so thrift store, Dollar Tree, wherever you can find a book that maybe you don't care so much about the cover. But the way I'm doing this, you can still read the book if you so choose. and we're just going to press it on. The nice thing with the Mod Podge, and I don't know if this would have happened if I didn't use it, was I was able to peel the wallpaper up and realign it and reposition it. So anyways, on the front and the back, I decided to fold it over into the cover, and then one end I just butted up against the edge of the wallpaper, and then the top part or the other end I just had to trim that down. To age this book a little bit and also cover up any edges of where the wallpaper ended that you might be able to see some white, I went over with some antique wax along the edges of this, and I just enjoy the look of that. Here's the book by itself, and then I have it layered with another book. These signs have been in my stash for a little while. I picked them up at Hobby Lobby. They were in their like classroom decor, and I got them when they were like 90% off. So I paid like $1 each for them, I guess, something around along those lines. I'm combining my phrases. So I liked the overall look of this, but obviously I needed to be able to cover up the words. So I sanded, but I didn't go too crazy because it's a thinner sign. So just enough to get the white paint to be able to cover it up. And I didn't go too close to the edge. I was trying to avoid getting paint on the frame, although I'm pretty sure at some point I do. And the background, yeah, right there. But the background of this also had a little bit of a distressed look. So I painted it white and then went in with a chippy brush and did a dry brush with some antique wax across to kind of just, I don't know, embrace the imperfect. Sometimes when you're making something over, it's hard to cover everything the way you want to. I mean, the paint covered well, but I don't know, there's something about doing this that just kind of helps it all blend together. It helped it blend in with the edges a little bit more that I didn't do as thorough painting because I didn't want to get anything on the frame because I really liked the frame. Anyways, antique wax, let it dry, and then I softened it up lightly with a my finger sander just to kind of soften up the lines from that. Now these are some beautiful transfers, once again, that I have that someone gave to me, and there are so many beautiful transfers that you can choose from online or in craft stores. And the bigger ones are great for larger signs or pieces of furniture, and you can cut them up. You see all those leaves on the side? I cut some off that just didn't fit right or look right, and I'm just going to slowly transfer them, peeling that top sheet off as gently as possible so that if I need to go back and rub it back on a little bit, I can do that. And then I'm going to use the top sheet to just kind of rub over it and burnish that in and seal that in. So for the second one, I just wanted to show you, I didn't need it to match the first one, but we are making a set of signs, and I wanted them to have some similarities as far as like fullness and like the flower buds, not the full flower. So I just cut up at pieces and I layered them a little bit. You do have to be careful with that because sometimes you can see the bottom transfer through the top transfer, like when you layer them. So I tried to put them really close to the edge, right where I wanted them, and I really just kind of took my time. But you can cut apart these transfers and make them work for you to do what you want them to do. So I thought this was a fun one. It's a very neutral piece because I wasn't totally sure where I was going with these, so where I was going to use these signs. So the neutral, like beige with a little bit of pink undertone, which is still pretty neutral in my opinion, was a really good choice for me. I think these are going to end up in a guest room as well. I don't have anything on the walls in my home yet, so we've got a lot to decorate still. But I love how these one came out. I think they're going to make a beautiful pair, and I just used those those signs from Hobby Lobby, and I turned them into some great blanks, and I did that on a budget. So whether it's a piece you already have at home that you're bored with or something you pick up on clearance, you can make it over and make it your own. We're starting off this next project with a picture frame. I have no idea where this one came from. I've had it for a long time. I've made it over a couple of times, but you can get some nice frames at the Dollar Tree, lots of nice frames at the thrift store, or maybe one you just have around the house that you don't want anymore. So I pulled the glass out and I did put a piece of paper in there, or paper towel in there, just to kind of protect the backing. Not that it really would have mattered if paint got on it. I'm using a light beige paint, acrylic paint that is in my stash because I'm trying to use up my paints that I have. This one had been previously given kind of a chippy look, and I think I might have used mineral chalk paint on there. I'm not positive. But I'm going to give this another coat. I think I did kind of 2 coats, not like 2 full coats of the whole thing. And I liked that there was like the frame was originally black. That was underneath. And then I had this other kind of taupey colored paint and then the beige paint or tan paint that I'm using right now. Is there a difference between tan and beige? I don't know. I think there is. But anyway, I am just going to give that a coat. And then once that is fully dry, we're going to sand it back and bring out some of the taupey color and some of the black color in pieces. So it kind of gives this layered, distressed look to the frame. I was using a pretty coarse sandpaper, but I was going very lightly so that I didn't go too far. But there were places where I wanted both layers of paint to come off. So I was using a coarse sandpaper. I just was light to the touch to give me varying degrees of distress. Now that we are all done sanding down our frame, I have these transfers that somebody gave me, some rub-on transfers. This one is a large one that gets pieced together, so half of it is on one sheet and then a little portion of it is on the other sheet. But I was just trying to figure out what ones I was going to do. We'll come back to that in a second. We're going to put those transfers onto a piece of canvas or burlap. No, this is canvas. And I'm just using my little iron to flatten it out. And then I'm needing to find the placement for the transfer that I'm using. And so I'm just laying the glass of the frame across the tops to just make sure I'm, in the right spot. I don't know that I did this the easiest way possible, but it's the way I did it. You can also put the transfer on the glass, but I wanted to put it on the canvas and see how that went. This one I am cutting out all sorts of pieces because this is one large continuous transfer. I believe these are from IOD and someone gave these to me and they're for a large piece, and because I'm not doing a large piece, I was cutting out some of the little bits and pieces that didn't kind of make sense with a smaller portion. So we're going to get this going. These have a pretty good stick to them. I don't know if all rub-on transfers work well on fabric, but to me it was worth trying and I was thrilled with the result. So if you have some, even if they're from the Dollar Tree, I would give it a try. So I'm just using my little scraper tool, which is, by the way, from the Dollar Tree. And I did speed this up a little bit. It wasn't hard, but it did take a little bit to get it going. But once I got that initial transfer, I just pulled the top sheet back carefully and made sure that everything was releasing onto the canvas from the plastic sheet. And then once that was fully released, you just take the top sheet and rub it over top to make sure it's all sealed down. Now here is the rest of that image, and I'm just trying to line them up. My head's going to get in the way, and we're going to do the same thing. I love how this came out. I do like color for spring, and you will see some color in some videos coming up. So if you like color, don't worry, that's coming. And of course, this could be done with color, but I loved the spring, the flowers, the bird, but also adding in a neutral element is nice. So clean the glass, then we're going to lay the canvas in here. And I had it hanging out over the edges because I figured that would hold it in the tightest. And this is one of those frames that the back doesn't come fully out of. So I just kind of messed with it until we got it in, and I love it. I'm going to use some of this frayed black ribbon from burlap.com once again. And we're going to make ourselves a little messy bow for a little embellishment on the frame. This is totally optional. You don't have to do anything else than what is already done, but I just wanted to, I don't know, try out some things, different ways of embellishing. This is a frayed ribbon, so it is frayed. I'm going to trim it down a little bit, but don't overly handle it because it's not a tightly woven piece and it will come undone. And I'm going to cut some thinner strips. This is not, I don't want this bow, did I say we were doing that? I think I did. We were going to make a messy bow. I don't want the bow to overwhelm the frame. I just want a little accent at the top. So I'm cutting some strips of that, and then I went into my stash and I had this piece of, I think this might have been like a canvas bag or something. I don't even know. I keep scraps, guys, in my stash, scraps that I don't even always know where they came from. Some more burlap ribbon here in a different shade, and we're going to do the crisscross kind of layering type of bow. I thought that would work better for this frayed ribbon because I thought trying to actually make a bow on it, it might fall apart. I don't know. And then I have this lacy ribbon from the Dollar Tree as well. I love this. It's like a little feminine touch, but it's neutral and it's like sturdy still. It's like dainty, but not too dainty. I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm describing it with great words, but I'm going to put black on the top as well because I did want the black accent here. And then I'm just using this, I don't even know what this is, some type of ribbon. You can use twine or whatever to just tie it off in the middle. That is all I did here. And then what happens is all of those little ribbon strips just kind of start fraying out and start looking a little bit like a bow. And I just wanted to show you how much is on this roll of ribbon. This is going to last a long time and go a long ways. Okay, now I'm doing just a little dab of hot glue and we're going to attach this to the corner of the frame. Again, totally optional, but I think it is a nice, fun little accent touch. I wanted to pull out a little bit of the black in the frame and a little bit of black in the lines of the transfer, but I wanted it to still be lighter. So I thought the layering of the different colors and shades did nice on this one. Let me know what you think. It's a little hard to get a camera shot because of the glass and reflection. So I was trying to be kind of strategic in how I was doing that. But let me know what you think of this piece. I love it. The transfer is absolutely beautiful. But there's a lot of ways you could get something similar. You could just even use a printout or a calendar page. Find something you like and put it in a frame. Put it on canvas in a frame. So great. And I wanted to show you the details of the distressed frame. But I was pleased with this one. Let me know what you guys think about this one down in the comments below.
I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, once again, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel before you leave so you don't miss out on my future videos. And I would love it if you would leave me a comment down below. I appreciate it so much. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.